Anyway, who's ready to join the investigation team again? Who's ready to get the investigation team kicked back up and running? Who's ready to hang out with our good pal, the cop? Who's ready to be the cop? Nobody should ever be ready to be the cop. Alright, back into everything's gonna be fine land. Here we go. We got it. Don't worry, folks. Waking up in a cheap hotel in the city was by no means pleasant. I remembered even during the long camping trips that we had during grade school, I wanted to get home quickly, counting out the days left on my fingers. Got your donuts ready? Fantastic. Waking up this morning, I was somehow reminded of that. Was it a need to be with my wife when she gave birth? A particular type of homesickness? As a productive member of society, as a public servant, bound to fulfill his duties, it was pathetic indeed. Those negative emotions faded as I downed my breakfast, which was surprisingly not half bad. The meeting with the informant that Oishi had provided would be tonight. Until then, I couldn't just be lazing around. The Onikafuchi Defense Alliance was protesting the dam's construction in various ways. Included in this was a strategy for improving public relations, which could be categorized into two major forms, combative and peaceful. Oh yeah, you missed the first part of this one. Well, not a whole lot happens in the first part, but there's definitely probably stuff you want to see happen. It's just like, oh hey, a dude's kid got kidnapped, and we're kind of investigating that, and they went over the history of the Onikafuchi Defense Force. Hey SAR, welcome. Hope you're well this evening. Hope things are nice and pleasant. Hope you're ready for some nice, cheerful Higurashi time. In regards to the former, as an attempt to keep law enforcement in check, they appealed to the public's sympathy by highlighting the oppressive and inhumane tactics of the police and the brutality of riot squads. Boy, there's your screenshot. There's your screenshot for the stream. The latter, peaceful route, stressed how precious the natural surroundings of Hinamizawa was, seeking people who would oppose the dam on environmental grounds. As a part of that, the village of Hinamizawa had invited celebrated zoologists and botanists, as well as environmental groups, to advertise the nature of the surrounding town. According to the news in recent years, there had been a group calling itself Hinamizawa Nature Watching, setting up free sightseeing tours. I would have liked to have taken advantage of the opportunity, but when I called the village administrative offices, they responded that it was too late to put in an application for a tour, and they were still undecided as to when they'd be doing another one.
そうですか。次回の募集はありませんか。残念です。
あんた、環境保護団体さんですか?
Yes, very much. I am a concerned citizen,
それと
and
も
nothing
雑誌さん
more.
の人?
いえ、個人です。
個人? 観光ですかね?
観光みたいなものです。美しい自然を写真に残すのが趣味なんで。
His job is to take pictures. We know what happens to photographers in Hinamizawa. Oh boy, that's a bad move. You shouldn't be telling him that, Akasaka.
雑誌でとても貴重な自然が残っていると読んだので、楽しみにしていたのですが。
I knew there was an article that had something like that written in it, but I hadn't actually read it. Was it this ad-libbed? Was it this ad-libbed line not going to work? It'll be fine. However, contrary to my expectations, the person I was speaking to laughed happily. We had a lot of wah-ha-hars in Hinamizawa.
ならあんた、村はちょいと慌ただしいけど、歓迎しますよ。
ぜひそうさせていただきます。ありがとうございます。
あんた、明日は何ですか? お車? もしそうだったら、先にナンバーを聞いときますよ。台湾ないんですね。
Oh, no ulterior motive behind wanting to know your license plate number. That's not weird at all. That was probably related to the checkpoints they'd set up on the way to the village. If I didn't get them by license plate number, I'd most likely be hindered in various ways. I thought about using the car I had borrowed for the prefecture, but I was lost on whether it was okay to tell them the plate number. If the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance was behind that incident, then there was no guarantee that they'd be able to find out who I was. I had to play it safe, so I elected to refrain from using that car.
いえ、実は車ではないんです。バスか何かがあれば、それで行きたいのですが。
Yeah, they seem friendly. They laugh a lot.
まずは廃線になってますそうですがね。そんでいらっしゃい。沖宮の駅から出ますよ。
ありがとうございます。探してみることにします。
本当、いつ来ます？南沢さん初めての土地じゃいろいろとご不安でしょう。教えてくれりゃ誰か行かせていろいろご案内させますよ。
そんな、そこまでしていただくのは申し訳ないです。
気にせんでください。
Did you know about our curse? Can I sell you a t-shirt with our curse on it?
これも村の自然さ守るための PR なんですから。
Judging by what I saw at the checkpoint, the villagers were at the very least wary of outsiders. That's why, in order to move in and out of the village freely, I had to travel with somebody like Oishi or side with the dam protests. Having an interest in the natural environment surrounding the village tied into a peaceful type of PR that the village was using. I was a bit against having a watchdog attached to me, but that might actually work out in my favor. The entire village was fired up about the dam protests, so I might be lucky enough to hear some especially candid opinions from the residents. Given that, there was no real reason for me to refuse their offer.
本当によろしいのでしょうか。でしたら本当に助かります。
After that, I was shown the bus schedule and directed to which bus I should get on. Somebody would come and meet me at the bus stop in the village. After showing me a good spot I'd take interest in, there would be no doubt they'd bring me to somewhere like an anti-dam information center. Then, over a cup of tea, they'd try to indoctrinate me into accepting their principles and beliefs. Well, if that was their aim, there'd be a lot of freebies involved. The world is about give and take, after all. I couldn't be going in a suit. I pulled some plain clothes out of my travel case and changed into something more casual. After that, after calming down by watching some of the local television, I left the hotel and set out for Okinomiya Station. The bus route that I was told to be on was discontinued. Certainly didn't look that way. There was more than enough trips on the schedule, and the number of passengers was by no means sparse. It was the main link to Okinomiya, but the only town in the area. The types of passengers who stood out were older folk who didn't look like they could drive, and housewives who didn't seem like they had a license. If the area was submerged at the bottom of the lake, it wouldn't matter if there was a bus route. That's why it was going to be discontinued, in the unnatural scheme of things. I could catch a glimpse of the government's intent in cutting off the means of transportation to bully the village into emptying out somehow. It makes sense. According to the documents, talks between the Ministry of Construction and the locals broke down quite early. The government decided from the start to take an aggressive stance on the matter. It was like a fairy tale with the north wind and the sun trying to get the traveler to remove his cloak. Even their bullying had meaning to it. The reason why the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance resisted so violently was because the government was doing unseemly things like that. I was somebody who lived in Tokyo, so for a village or two out in the boonies like this to be submerged didn't seem like a big deal. But I guess for somebody actually living here, it would be a vitally huge problem. Yeah, I don't know. Taking people's homes away from them might be a big fucking deal. Taking away people's culture and tradition might be a little bit of a fucking deal. Weird how people would get real snooty about that, right? Huh? The store will be discontinued at the end of the financial year. Thank you for your patronage out to this point. We look forward to your continued patronage on the other lines. Okinomiya Transportation. Gazing lazily at the notice of discontinued service posted inside the bus, I counted down the number of stops until the designated one. Along the way, we passed through the checkpoint before without stopping. They knew what time the bus was coming, so they had opened up the barricade ahead of time. From here on out was enemy territory. My palms had at some point become coated in a thin film of sweat.
浮田水道前、大利の方はいらっしゃいませんか？
Well, that's a good. That's a good. That is a good anniversary to be celebrating. I hurriedly pressed the stop request button as the designated stop was announced. For none of the numerous passengers to be getting off here meant that it must be quite a remote place. In actuality, the stop I got off on was abnormally run down, and I could tell it was barely used. As soon as I stepped out, an intense atmosphere completely different from that of the interior of the bus assailed my body. Right now, Oishi or Hondaya weren't beside me. That's right. At present, I was alone in the middle of enemy territory. My adversaries probably thought that I was just an ordinary tourist, but this is nothing more than a ruse. But if by some mistake my true identity was to be exposed, it brought back the terrifying words I had heard in the prefectural office, that if somebody was attacked in Hinamizawa with a knife, there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. I didn't seem suspicious, did I? My clothing was currently casual. It was exactly the type of clothing that a city slicker that viewed the countryside as a wholesome getaway would wear. A camera and knapsack. Inside were various things needed for hiking. It was still only June, and maybe it was unusual, but the sun was shining down like it was already the middle of summer. The fact that I didn't bring a hat must seem odd. No, it wasn't something to be that concerned about. It's alright. I was just a normal tourist. Just normal. Asking that as I turned around to look at the bus stop was departing. Hello? Asking that as I turned around to look at the bus that was departing, all the passengers by the window were staring down at me silently. Y'all are weird. They were staring at me as if they had seen right through my proud little outfit, just staring, looking down on me. Countless stares rained down like needles on me from the windows opened to air out the bus. All that rained down were stares. None of them were saying a word. But, all the more, their silent stares told me more than a million words could. Hurry up and go back to Tokyo, you outsider.
私は
There was no reason for me to speak. My quiet voice was drowned out by the sound of the engine. The bus, as if to torment me, set out slowly, and after doing more than enough to intimidate me, sped off. A thin film of sweat began to rise from my entire body. According to the documents, it was a village that seemed wary of outsiders. Its population was small as well. If they saw an unfamiliar face, they would be quick to identify that face as an outsider. On top of that, nobody else had gotten off at this stop. It was a bus stop that they normally just passed on by. Somebody actually getting off there. There was no doubt that had drawn some attention, but this wasn't a slip-up. They were the ones who directed me to get off to get off at this stop. There was nothing to worry about. I knew that I was just nervous since this was my first undercover assignment. My more seasoned colleagues referred to this as the new generation that doesn't know how to lose. The new generation that didn't know how to lose their cool, but that wasn't true at all. In order to calm my breathing down, I exhaled the unpleasant air residing in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't help but pray that my apprehensions would disappear like the white clouds of exhaust expelled from the bus. There was a small shed there to serve as a shelter if it rained, and it was there that I decided to wait. Inside the shed, one wall was plastered with posters advertising the dam opposition's effort. It was like the heartfelt screams of the villagers were recorded on that wall. Inside that shelter, I felt an inexplicable pressure. It wasn't like I had any real relation to the dam project, but it still made me feel hesitant about being inside there. Yeah, that'll endear you to people too. Not a problem there. Yeah, I figured that would probably be a bit more normal. It wasn't like I had any real relation to the dam project, but it still made me feel hesitant about being inside there. That was just how filled with the force of denial that space was. And inside that uneasy space was a girl. Yo, a girl! Hello. There you go. There's your music. There's your tune. Hey, a familiar face. Things are going to be okay, everybody. Look at that. It's just an adorable little CG there. She's a twig! Inside that shed, covered in words written in broad brushstrokes pertaining to the policies regarding the dam and calling for action, there was a girl sitting there with a drowsy gaze, as if half asleep. Her legs are small as the wood planks. They actually are. The two images clashed as much as I could only stand there dumbfounded for a moment, trapped in such a surreal environment. If I stepped inside, who knew what kind of oafish noises I would accidentally make. I couldn't be disturbing this girl's slumber like that. Having thought this, I gave up on entering the shed. It was just a sleeping kid, so why was I so worked up about it? Finally, I realized this girl, to us as a married couple, was the very image of our ideal child. Even after numerous examinations at the hospital, we didn't know for sure what our child's gender was. Whatever we could tell, if they were a boy or a girl was, in the end, depended on whether or not we could get an image of their genitalia. This was, of course, no guarantee, as if it was a girl, but with things the way they were, the possibility was high. Even so, Yukie had been saying that the chances of it were a boy or girl were even. But in my heart, I had already decided that our coming child was a girl. Since the day I decided that until now, it was so fun to imagine how our child would grow up and that I couldn't help myself. Amongst those numerous imagined forms, the one that I had thought to be the most ideal materialized right in front of me. Of course, a little of it was due to the circumstances. In my ideal image, her hair would be on the short side. The girl in front of me, though, had long hair. We're going to not mention the fact that it's blue. And we're in it's kind of like an anime world, and we can't mention that her hair is blue. Because then we'd have to acknowledge that Mion's hair is green. Yeah, she looked full asleep. It was almost as if somebody had taken my ideal and made small adjustments. It certainly wasn't something unpleasant. Even so, it felt like I was sullying her just by looking at her like that. She had an immaculate, no, a divine air about her. Oh God! Oh God! Did we make her cry? That is a horrifying face! Okay, that's a more that is a more get out of my fucking shed face. The girl was with an angelic smile with a yawn wide enough that you could see her molars woke up all of a sudden. I didn't mean to peep, but locking eyes with a girl who had just woken up like this somehow made me feel like I was playing a prank on her. I wasn't doing anything shady, but I became flustered. The girl spoke. No, cried out.
Me.
Oh my God, they did a little itty bitty RIKA sprite! Oh my God, they did itty bitty RIKA sprite! Holy shit! It's so good! There's no way they did that in the others. Oh, they did one for the manga gamer version. And she's just kind of normal here. Oh my God, it's so adorable! Meep. Like the character in the show with the puppets? With the orange hair? I thought it was just one of those greetings kids do. So in order to prove I wasn't a suspicious person, I responded in oh my God, this motherfucker meeps. If this motherfucker meeps, I'm gonna lose my shit.
Me.
There goes my shit!
Me.
Me.
Me. Oh my God! This is too good! The girl stared at me dubiously with a doll-like expression, cute but cold and hard to read. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. There was, after all, an unfamiliar man right in front of her when she woke up, who responded with me when she said the same. Suspicious. She definitely thought I was suspicious.
Me.
Me?
were both at a loss for words. No, the only one who lost was me. The girl in front of me, as if inquiring about my motives, stared at me intently. In this silence, I felt like I was the one who had to say something first. Damn it, this girl was way better at interrogating somebody than Oishi.
怪しいものじゃないか。
Good starter! Fantastic starter. That's the way you open a conversation. That's the way you make sure people instill their trust in you. Perfect. Perfect.
私は
Oh my god. The Nipa face is so good. Jesus Christ, it's so good.
ニパ
Oh my! This is... What I couldn't have it described as a cold expression suddenly blossomed into a smile, one that soon infected me. You might be familiar with the term angelic smile. To me, it was like that phrase was just created just to describe the smile she gave me. This girl smiling was saying Nipa probably wanted me to return the favor in kind. That's right, this was a kid's form of communication. Having the other person emulate what you just did was a rudimentary form of mutual understanding.
ニパ
You did it, Akasaka! You did it! It was a beautiful afternoon in the early summer. What was I doing?
ニパ
This is too much! Well, whatever. This was interesting in its own way. If making somebody happy with just a little smile was the work of angels, then this girl was definitely one of them. I couldn't help but pray that my own child, who was soon to be born, would grow up to be like this girl. That strangely gentle moment was finally brought to an end by the arrival of a car. An older person waved at me from the driver's seat, a dry smile plastered on their face.
どうも、こんにちは。遅れて申し訳ないことです。昨日お電話くださった観光の方ですかね。
あ、はい。
お待たせして申し訳ねえ。いや、野良でちょいと遅れましてね。そしたらと、お乗りくださいな。天気もまんた崩れそうだから、ちゃけちゃけご案内しますよ。
天気ですか？
ああ、ここいらは崩れると早いよ。いや、まあ夕立になるかもな。そうなったら、ほんと写真さ撮るところじゃなくなるでしょ。ほら、乗って乗って。
Oh, way to go, dum-dum. Turning around, the girl was standing right behind me with an intrigued expression. Her body language somehow reminded me of a stray cat that followed you around after you played with it a little. So charming.
あれ、リカちゃまじゃねえですか。ありがたや、ありがたや。
This girl has managed to hold entire conversations for the last 7 minutes with just 2 words. A girl named Rika with an immaculate smile and an old man praising her while rubbing prayer beads in his hands. It was rather a mysterious sight to behold. So the girl turns her face to me, tilting her head a little in a cutesy manner. After seeing that, the elder introduces me as a tourist who came to sightsee Hinamizawa.
村を観光したい若者なのです。
The girl, Rika-chan, said with a smile as she clung to my arm.
まあね、この村の自然がとても貴重だと聞いたんで、ぜひカメラに収めたいと思ったんだよ。
She's probably 5 or 6 here, somewhere around there. 6, 7-ish. Like, they're very vague about the ages, but I think in current time she's about 10 or 11. So she would be about 5 or 6 here. 7 if we're stretching it and she's 11, but I don't think she and Satoko are 11 years old.
私はこう見えてもとっても写真撮影が好きでね。
富竹2号なのです。
Oh, damn! Like, Tomitake is already a known factor in 1978.
富竹？
牧野、僕も一緒に行ってはいけませんですか？
そんなレカちゃまが来ても面白いことなんか何もないですよ。レカちゃまは境内でマリ遊びでもしててくださいな。
A distinctly displeased expression creeped across Rika-chan's face. Being able to show one's emotions honestly on their faces was a privilege young children had.
もしお差し支えなければこの子も連れて行ってあげてください。
When he said those helpful words, another smile spread across Rika-chan's face with another nipa as she clung to me again. Ah, not bad at all. I want this girl to call me Papa. Now, everybody needs to stop being weird in this video game. Right the fuck now. What am I doing? Ever since I met this girl, I was completely off my game. Just calm down.
勝たなあかんと。レカちゃまはダメだ言うても聞かんしな。知ったらんと、己くだせ。ささ、レカちゃまも。
The old man descended from the driver's seat and opened up the sliding door of the van, which had Onigafuchi Alliance Town Council stenciled on the side. Rika-chan made spring sounds, and then brushed me aside, dove into the seat, and began bouncing around right away. It definitely is showing a lot more reverence, and I think that that's probably important. It's a very specific reverence that nobody else is getting, and everybody uses it. It seemed like she was thoroughly enjoying the bouncy
はんれ、
springs.
レカちゃま。そんじゃお客人が座れねえですよ。やだ、こら、レカちゃま。
I wonder if my child will play around like this too. No. It was written in the guide to raising a child that you shouldn't dote on them. Kids are kids if you don't raise them strictly without spoiling them.
中でバインバインでニパ
ニパー。
He keeps doing it! He keeps doing it! I am definitely going to be a terrible father. It was decided that I would be a doting parent before my child was even
さ
born.
あお客さん、風景の綺麗そうなとこで適当にご案内しますよ。お昼は食べましたかいね？
ええ、ホテルで軽食を。
そんですか。では参りましょうか。
ー。南沢観光に出発なのですよ。わーいなのです。
君はリカちゃんでいいのかい？
そうなのですよ。フルでリカと言いますです。もう繰り上がりの足し算とかもできますですよ。
Damn, dude! She can already do addition in the tens digit! She is way too advanced for her age!
ああ、それは
お指とかは折ってませんですよ。ちゃんと暗算でできますですよ。
Dang, look at her go! The way she insisted on that was just too cute. At some point, the nervousness I had about being alone in enemy territory had evaporated like it was never there at all. I had to be at least a little thankful that I met this
じゃあ
girl.
出発しましょうかいね。南沢大自然ウォッチング。
Yeah, I was doing pretty basic addition in kindergarten, and I was already reading books that were like they were sort of like children's books that had really simple stuff in them, like the jar is full of water, the dog ran fast. Like I was already reading that stuff before I went to school. Photography tour! is good use of... Oh my god! Oh my god! Did you see that shit? That was so good! Oh my god! That was so good! Oh my god. She did the corner thing. Oh my god. The old man, who was apparently named Makino, was he the same Makino that was listed as the auditor of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance? Showed me around places that were all breathtaking. Even though I wasn't really there for sightseeing, I couldn't help but be impressed. First of all, this is different from the simple scenery of the city. The scenery of a charming village like this, no matter how mundane it seemed to the villagers, has a tranquil appeal to it. At first, I was only releasing the shutter as part of my tourist act, but midway through, I found myself taking pictures out of pure interest. Tourist traps had their own unique allure to them, but there was nothing like that here. I was especially captivated by the unspoiled nature of the place. If there wasn't a whole uproar of the dam, I would bring Yukie with me here at some other time. I wanted her to breathe this fresh air as well as show her this rejuvenating verdant scenery.
こんなのが面白いのですか？赤坂は変な人なのです。
いや、こういう円筒状の郵便ポストなんて今はとても貴重だよ。どことなく漂うノスタルジックな雰囲気は渋いと思わないかな。
ひなみ沢は楽しいですか？
ああ、楽しいよ。退院したらぜひ家内を連れてもう一度来たいよ。その時には生まれている子供も一緒にね。今は出産を控えて入院しているんだ。予定日がもうすぐでね。君みたいな可愛い女の子だといいんだけど。
お客さんはもうすぐおめでたですかいね。そんないけねえよ。奥さん放り出してこんなとこに遊びに来てちゃ。
Yeah, that kind of makes your story look a little shitty, my dude. I went to go do some tourism while my wife is about to give birth. Whoops! I was momentarily at a loss for words. It was exactly as Makino had said. There was no good reason for a man who was waiting for his wife to give birth to be playing around idly in this place. Did I slip up? Yeah.
ひなみ沢への旅行は前々からの予定だったんで。妻の家族が付き添ってくれているから。
That might have been a good save if you hadn't literally just called for a tourist like an hour ago. Like, this is stuff you would have taken care of months in advance.
そんなに前から予定してたんなら、まさかね、間に合わんとかいね。
Whoops!
いや、そんだったら、こんな窮屈な思いさせんと、綺麗な観光バスで回れたのね。
It didn't seem as if Makino was actually digging for anything, but if this conversation continued any longer, it would put some unexpected holes in my cover. I halted the conversation by pretending to take another picture.
じゃあ、最後の一番景色のいいとこさ案内しましょうかね。
Yeah, it runs in the village, apparently. It was slightly before evening. The sun was still burning brightly, but a cool breeze had begun to mix itself into the air. It seemed my exploration of Hinamizawa with Rika-chan was just about done. So
一番景色のいいところですか？
そんなリカちゃま、境内からの景色さを置いて他にはありませんやね。
Hearing that, Rika-chan smiled even more.
では、赤坂を僕のお家へご招待なのです。
リカちゃんのお家って。
神社ですよ。古で神社。高台にありましてね。景色さ見られるんですよ。
古で神社。
The girl who called Furude Shrine her home, Rika. If I remember correctly, her full name was Rika Furude. And Furude was, that's right, one of the three families. Even if the Sonozaki family is said to hold all the actual power, it was still one of the old houses that held the same authority. No, more important than that right now was Furude's Shrine. If I remembered correctly, Oishi had told me, within the grounds of the Furude Shrine there were offices of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance, and since the land around the Furude Shrine was private property, the police couldn't set foot in there needlessly. Furude Shrine, where even Oishi couldn't simply set foot into, the main base of operations of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. I had been given the unexpected opportunity to enter there. I couldn't have asked for more.
楽しみです。ぜひお願いします。
じゃあ、酒々参りましょうかね。天気も少し怪しいですからな。
The sky had suddenly become overcast. It wouldn't be odd if it started raining soon. The cicadas, as if trying to finish their daily allotment of chirps before the evening, cried out even more fervently. Just a little iffy. Just like one that you could put in the corner of your stream and keep there. It'll keep you company. Just a little iffy. A pocket-sized iffy. The van stopped in the shrine's parking lot. Also parked there were numerous other vans with loudspeakers mounted on top of them to act as makeshift propaganda vehicles. On the side of each vehicle was scrawled, "The dam project must be demolished. Defend our homeland to the last. No Oyashiro-sama's anger." Or a slogan of a similar kind. They gave the feeling that even without the loudspeakers, there was enough to overwhelm any onlookers. Vertical banners were erected in various places. The contents of those banners were similar. They were all objections against the dam, or crude insults towards the government. There were horizontal banners, placards, and so on and so forth. They proclaimed that without a doubt that this was the headquarters of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. For Rika-chan, however, this hectic place was also her home. Hello. How you doing? You are very close. Rika-chan crawled over my lap and exited the vehicle first. Makino had noticed that I was looking at the protest banner.
ダム反対運動の事務所も兼ねてましてね。こんな風景もあんたらには反安保闘争みてえで懐かしいでしょ。
Student movements against government policies, measurements that bordered on terrorist activity were at the time commonplace, if only in order to garner global attention. Students holding out in lecture halls, brawling with the riot squads that charged in. This was an age where wasting one's youth like that was widely considered a road to glory. It was slightly before my time.
私は別に活動家ではありませんので、普通に学び、普通に卒業しました。国の政策にあのような暴力や立てこもりで対抗しようというのには。は
あ、あんたそれはそれで立派な意見さお持ちだね。
政策に意見したかったら同じ意見の政治家に投票するか。
Oh, Akasaka sucks.
自ら政治の世界に
He's one of those people.
正当な手続きを持って意見を主張するべきであると思っています。
Why are you protesting? Just vote. Oh, he's one of those guys. Oh no. Oh no.
それが民主政治の原点です。
This guy thinks democracy works. Oh no.
それに暴力で挑戦するなどあってはならないと思います。
I saw that feeling of respect reflected in Makino's gaze. The moment, something tugged at my sleeve.
赤坂が何を言っているのか全然わからない
Yeah,
の
even
ですよ。
Rika's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Shut up. You sound like a goddamn moron. Rika-chan, feeling like she was the only one who didn't understand the conversation, had a look of displeasure on her face. That expression was so charming I had to keep myself from grinning like an idiot. It's often said that the father wants to spoil his daughter rotten. I think I understood that feeling very
これ
well.
ね、リカちゃんには難しい話だったね。日本は平和の国だから。
Exactly! If voting mattered, they wouldn't let us.
暴力で訴えてはいけないということさ。
No matter how much I explained, a girl who was just boasting about being able to carry digits over when adding things probably wouldn't understand. It probably wasn't something to talk about in front of Rika-chan anyway.
では赤坂
She looks mad. That is a very good, angry look.
僕たちの村はどうやったらダムに沈まなくなるのですか?
Even if I regretted my careless words, it was too late now. Here I was, at the main headquarters of an organization, telling them their way of doing things was illegal. Preaching that violence was not the answer. A complicated feeling had mixed itself in with the respect in Makino's gaze. It was then that I finally realized it wasn't that simple. There wasn't a soul who would argue that what I was saying wasn't correct. Using violence to get one's way was something that everybody knew you shouldn't be proud of. However, right now, Hinamizawa was in a predicament that couldn't be overcome with peaceful means alone. The legality of the Hinamizawa Dam project, through the efforts of the various propaganda campaigns enacted by the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance, was being called into question. If they further strengthened their campaign, they might be able to suspend or change the construction plans. Violence is sometimes the answer! But that was at the most just a possibility. If the government proceeded with the construction as planned, it wouldn't be long before this place was at the bottom of a lake. If it wasn't for the unrestrained resistance of the residents of Hinamizawa, this place might already have been underwater.
僕たちはここでしか生きていけないのです。都会では生きていけないのです。
The words of this remarkably young girl were all too accurate, carrying with them the screams of the hearts of the minds of the residents of Hinamizawa. Of course, there was nothing I could say to respond to that. I could only respond to Makino and Rika-chan's heavy words with silence.
すみません。
Yeah, shut your fucking hole, Akasaka. Jesus.
よそ者が気安く言えるような問題ではなかったですね。
You fucking think.
謝罪します。
Makino, unsure of how to reply for a while, could only laugh pointlessly.
お客人たちのようなよそに住んでる方々には関係ねえことです。Hinamizawaさん気に入ってくださったんなら、お客人のお友達みんなにもHinamizawaさん素晴らしいところだって宣伝してください。そういうのが何十年何百年と広がっていけば、この村さダム底に沈めるなんてふざけた計画もやがてはついえるんですかね。
He followed that with a smile and said, "Please don't think much of it." Makino letting me not worry that much really was a stroke of good fortune. Becoming infatuated with the idea of making friends with the little girl had made me completely forget my apprehension of being in enemy territory. Being reminded of this right before I was going to step foot into their headquarters might have been a good thing. If we'd had this exchange in the middle of their office, if there was any short-tempered youth in there, they might have come at me. Thinking of how extreme they were, in the worst case, my life could have been in danger. It seemed that I looked quite despondent at that moment. Makino, thinking he had said something wrong, became flustered, trying to think of a way to improve my
本当に
mood.
軽率なことを言いました。本当にすみませんでした。
そんなにお気にされないでください。
今日案内してもらった村のあちこちはどこもとても美しく素晴らしい場所ばかりでした。もう一度来たいと心底思わされました。そんな美しい村がダムの湖底に沈むことになれば必死の戦いになるのもわかります。
I had somehow managed to use my despondent look to change the topic in my favor. After a bit, Makino had returned to his usual high spirits. It seemed he believed I completely sympathized with his point of view.
そうそう。そんな話はこれくらいにしましょう。本当にとても景色さいいところがあるんです。
行きましょうですよ、赤坂。
Rika-chan, seemingly happy to be free of all the boring and gloomy adult talk, bounded up the stone steps. There was no real need to run, but in order to catch up with her, I also darted up the steps. There were several tents belonging to the town council erected on the shrine grounds. Inside the tents were several folding tables and chairs, and a number of the older town council members were livening things up with chit-chat. They weren't saying anything incendiary like the dam project must be destroyed. It was just some relaxed, idle chit-chat between local geezers. The normal sort of calming scenery. At the entrance of the shed looked like a meeting place. There was a large sign erected with Onigafuchi Defense Alliance headquarters written in bold brushstrokes. This was their base of operations. To be honest, it was a bit of a letdown. If you'd asked what I had been imagining, this was a bit embarrassing, but I'd have thought it was something much more dramatic, with barbed wire fences and barricades. My first impression of the place, though, was completely different from that. It looked like a simple backwater town hall. It didn't look like anything other than exactly that. The old folks who were chatting had noticed Rika-chan's presence. There's some fun things that happened here last time.
ここは僕のお家なのですよ。
We all had a laugh. It was a real gut buster, I tell you. The old folks guffawed, since she wasn't wrong. From that exchange, I could tell that this was Rika Furudegoro was loved by everybody.
Makino-san,
Hey!
その人?
Kiichiro gets a Sprite! Nice!
電話をくれた観光の人は
そんですよ。こちら村長さんにHiname沢のKimeyoshi
I'm
村長
surprised Kimiyoshi has a Sprite, because I don't think that he does in, no, not there, and not there. So Kimiyoshi gets a Sprite. He smiled brightly, but there was no mistaking that he'd be scary if he got angry. By the looks of things, this old man was the president of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance, none other than Keiichiro Kimiyoshi himself. That's his anime design, because I'm pretty sure he didn't have a design in the original game, so they just kind of went with the anime look.
ようこそ南沢へ。
No, he happened after the fact. I don't think that Keiichiro had a Sprite before Keiichi did, because he probably didn't have a Sprite at all in the original VNs at all. It was likely added for the PS2 game. Welcome to Hinamizawa.
いかがでしたか？静かでゆっくりしたところでしょう。
ええ、今日一日美しい場所をいくつも堪能させていただきました。貴重な機会をお与えくださったことを感謝します。
へえ、今時の若い方なのにまた真摯な方だね。
喜一郎、赤坂に見晴らしのいいところを案内したいのですよ。
When she tells you she wants to show you a cool place. What do you do when someone in Hinamizawa tells you they want to show you a cool place? Thinking that the formalities between myself and the mayor had gone on far too long, Rika-chan butted in the conversation. For her to call the mayor by his first name, I felt that was a little strange, but none of the villagers seemed to mind. Rika doesn't use, she doesn't use honorifics, I don't think. I don't think she gives anybody honorifics. I'll go to the Furude household, one of the three families. She was probably different than the average villager.
赤坂、こっちなのですよ。
Rika-chan tugged at my sleeve. Not resisting, I allowed myself to be pulled over, and waiting for me was a magnificent view.
これはすごい。
It was an observation deck that looked down on the village. They, knowing that this was the best view in the entire village, kept quiet as I stood there awestruck. I was holding a camera, but had completely forgotten to even glance through the viewfinder. This view, no matter what kind of film it was printed on, it wouldn't be able to show everything. There was a way to explain it. It would only be that I would be able to put. If there was a way to explain it, it would only be what I would be able to put into words. It was just a breathtakingly spectacular view that I struggled to find comparison. For a while, I was left awestruck. I could only stand there and wonder. A cool breeze helped abate the heat rushing through my body. That comfortable sensation also left me speechless. Rika-chan, who had been holding onto my sleeve the entire time, spoke.
僕の一番のお気に入りの場所なのですよ。
As she said that, she showed me another adorable smile. That smile seemed very fleeting. If you ask why, it was because the view from her favorite spot would eventually be submerged under the deep green waters of the dam
こんな
reservoir.
村が湖底に沈むことになってるなんて信じられないよ。
I said it quietly so that only Rika-chan could hear it. I regretted it as soon as I did, for those words were all too cruel. However, Rika-chan didn't let them cast a cloud over her expression. In fact, she replied with a smile.
沈みませんよ。ダム計画なんて必ずなくなっちゃいますのです。
Stay confident, girl. Like that. Stay positive. It was just a little girl to say something like that. There was no basis for her saying so. It was just her wish.
赤坂はこの村が沈んでしまうと思っていますか？
沈んでほしくなんか
I
ない
knew how important the dam was. I knew that it was necessary. I just didn't want to recognize the sacrifices that would be made. I agreed with the project in general, but couldn't agree with some of the details. But if it meant that this girl's beloved scenery wouldn't be taken away from her, I might be able to object to the dam. I might be able to ignore the interests of the nation, the development of Japan, all for the sake of one girl's smile. I'm not really much of a humanist, but... How sentimental of me. I'm so
沈みま
sentimental.
せんよ。
Look at me and how empathetic I am. I'm so altruistic.
ダムの計画はもうすぐなくなりますですから。
Her words weren't just hopes and dreams, they were seasoned with a hint of resolve. As if she was talking to an unchangeably predetermined outcome. As surely as the sun rising in the
もうすぐ
east.
なくなる
When I asked her why she believed that, I turned around.
はい。なくなりますのですよ。
どうしてそう言い切れるんだい
それはなのです。
It's not just Rika, it's tiny Rika. You will see when we are not in close-up mode. She's tiny. She seemed to want to answer, but as though unable to find the right words, she swallowed back what she was about to say.
赤坂が何をしてもしなくても、ダム計画は今年で終わりになってしまうのです。
Is she onto us?
もう決まっていることなのですよ。
That was a lie. If something like that had already been decided, then the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance would have no reason to continue existing. From my point of view, it was like they were doing nothing more than throwing themselves into an endless battle. If they knew the dam project was cancelled, they would feel much more relaxed around here. This village, though, could hardly be called relaxed. For evidence of that, I just had to remember how changed the atmosphere was at the checkpoint or at the bus stop. The villagers, with their misplaced resolve, were still fighting, and this girl, even knowing the villagers' grim resolve, had already declared their victory. The villagers throwing themselves into this endless war, and this optimistic girl who'd said they had already won. That contrast was somehow
どうして
strange.
そう思うんだい何か確信があるなら私に教えてくれないかい
Rika-chan stayed silent for a while, seemingly choosing what to say.
だって、
だって
She looked like she was lost on whether she should continue or not, as if she was troubled on whether it was okay for her to say it, that kind of
決
expression.
まっていることなのです。他に言いようがないのですよ。
決まっているって言ったって
It really is just like a little girl to say something like that. I couldn't believe it was actually true. She was the only one saying such things with such confidence. My real mission that I had forgotten about during this fun-filled day resurfaced at the back of my mind. The kidnapping of the minister's grandson. Had the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance kidnapped the minister's grandson and already succeeded in negotiating the cancellation of the dam project? Did Kimiyoshi actually already know that and was just playing dumb? Was that what this girl was really telling me?
赤坂、
The girl called out my name
Nana.
suddenly.
東京へ帰れ。
Excuse me? What? Huh. I wasn't only surprised at that sudden command. Ever since I came to this village, I had never once mentioned I was from Tokyo. Yeah, later, dork. Fuck out of here. Wow, there's another one? Jesus. Got 2 in a row! 3? Let's go. They is a comin'. Yeah, no fucking kidding. Jesus. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, they heard the bells apparently. Rika was like, go back to Tokyo, and the bots were like, nuh-uh! Ever since I came to this village, I had never once mentioned I was from Tokyo. Well, based on my accent, she might have been able to guess where I was from. What was I getting so worked up for? It was probably the sudden and complete change in her demeanor. Hello? Hello? The girl was holding my sleeve the entire time. She'd been tugging at my sleeve since since hurriedly dragging me over to show me this wonderful view. But this was the adorable Rika-chan who I'd spent an entire day with. There was no way she would have been replaced with a doppelganger when I wasn't looking. She had been holding onto my sleeve this entire time, but somehow this girl was someone other than Rika-chan. She looked like Rika-chan, but she wasn't. She was some girl I had never met before. That girl had told me in an indifferent voice that I would eventually regret coming to this village from the bottom of my heart. Whoa! There's your CG. That's a really cool CG. Yeah, she's very small. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, such cold words from Rika-chan's mouth. I just couldn't believe it. Was somebody impersonating her? Using ventriloquism or something? Thinking that, I wanted to take a look around, but the girl's gaze had me pinned down, making me unable to move. The girl I had spent time with, Rika Furude, would not speak like that. She would speak with a cuteness befitting her age, with brief, childish remarks expressing her emotions honestly. She definitely wouldn't speak with such pointed words. Oh my god. That smugness! Look at that smugness that is on my screen right now. As soon as I accused her of not being Rika-chan, she let out a strange, quiet giggle. It was a laugh not befitting a child her age. It was like she was possessed by something. Her change was just a total and complete. Was Rika-chan being attacked by some terrifying phenomenon? The occult idea came to mind without any sort of hesitation. Rika-chan is acting strange. Somebody help! Thinking that I'd yelled that, I turned to where the mayor was. I immediately realized he was looking at us with a smile. That's right, to him, it looked like nothing more than me and Rika-chan fooling around. He didn't notice that there was something terrifying happening to her. Wow. The girl had obviously grasped that I was afraid. Noticing that and calling me a coward, she laughed again. The cackling girl, approaching me in a strange manner, was still laughing, lost her balance, and fell flat on her face. But later. Rika-chan fell down. It was just a while before I would extended a hand to help. If it was just a while before, I would have extended a hand to help her up without hesitation. But now, extending a hand to this ominous girl who looked like Rika-chan but wasn't, required a bit more courage than I had at the moment.
Me.
See, look, she's small. She's a little chicken nugget. She's tiny. The girl cried out thus. She then squirmed upright and dusted herself off. Afterwards, she looked around restlessly as a blank expression crept across her face. You've got to be kidding me. Was she making fun of me? That way of acting? It was as though, after being possessed by something, she had lost her memories of what happened.
Me.
Yeah, she knee-paws a lot. You missed so much knee-paw. Like, it was enough to last a year. I don't know if Rika-chan had heard me or not. She just cried out like that as if questioning herself. This is the worst and most shrill old lady voice I've ever heard in my life, and I would appreciate never hearing it again. Please stop talking. This voice feels terrible with headphones. Do not talk anymore. An old lady wearing a smock was waving energetically from the entrance of the office. Hearing that there were snacks, Rika-chan's expression changed. A carefree smile, that was a familiar smile, the one that belonged to the embodiment of my ideal daughter. Any hand of that creepy girl that was just here, spouting sinister words, had vanished. Ah! God. Hey, Zuki. How's it going? I'll give you it. It's very rude, Zuki Wookie. It's very rude. Rika-chan responded with vigor, running off and to the washing station that was along the side of the office. She stopped halfway, turning around to call to me. Dang, dude, she's gonna eat our manju too? Wow. This is good advice. This is good advice for the world we live in right now. If you don't wash your hands, you're not allowed to eat any manju. No matter how you looked at it, that was Rika-chan. Those words and the way she said them, no matter how you heard them, they were definitely Rika-chan's. Stop talking, old woman, please! Oh my god, I'm taking out headphones for this. God, that is shrill. The old lady urged me to wash my hands. Without resistance, I lined up beside Rika-chan at the wash station. I stared at Rika-chan, intent on washing her hands properly, like she probably learned at school.
Me? 間違っていますか?
間違いって
僕のお手手の洗い方です。金シールを4個しかもらったことないです。 僕はお手手を洗うのが
Oh,
きっと
damn.
下手なのですよ。
This is not the girl you want to be around in a pandemic, then. She only got 4 gold stickers for washing her hands.
間違ってなんかないよ。それだけしっかり洗えてれば十分だよ。
それだけではダメなのですよ。ちゃんとたわしを使って爪の間の赤も落とさないと金シールはもらえないのです。
うん。リカちゃんは真面目で偉いな。
ニパー、赤坂に褒められましたのです。
The hand washing society of Onikafuchi. No matter how you looked at it, it was Rika-chan. There was no trace of that girl from before. Exactly what was that sinister
Rika-chan.
girl?
さっきのあれはどういう意味だい？さっきリカちゃんは私に東京へ帰れってそう言っただろ。
言いましたのですか？
I was at a loss for words. She didn't remember what the girl just now had said. Like I would ever believe something as a cult that could happen. Like I would ever believe that Rika-chan could be possessed by that strange girl and say those creepy
リカ
things.
ちゃんが確かにそう言ったよ。
Her expression told me that, despite me saying so, she had no idea. She wasn't playing dumb. She actually didn't know. She wasn't playing dumb. She actually was dumb. Exactly what was that just now? Just as Rika-chan had, I let a look of confusion creep across my face. The two of us, both looking like we had no idea what was going on, must have certainly been a humorous sight to behold. While partaking of tea and snacks, I was shown a propaganda film shot by the Defense Alliance that highlighted their resistance efforts. Older folks talked passionately on how long and grueling the fight against the dam was, but they fell on deaf ears. I was transfixed by Rika-chan, who had heard these stories countless times before and was nodding off. Eventually, Rika-chan noticed I was staring at her and smiled as she rubbed her eyes. That smile was Rika-chan's after all. There was no hint of that sinister shadow. After that, my unreasonable fear of Rika-chan lessened with the passing of time, but I could by no means forget what had happened. It eventually grew dark. The mayor said that they had prepared dinner, but I said I would come again tomorrow and took my leave. I had to return to the hotel and file my regular report with the section chief.
そうですか。ではまた明日もぜひいらっしゃい。お電話さくれればすぐに迎えを出しますんでね。
ご好意感謝します。ぜひ明日も遊びに来ようと思います。
ええ、さしてあげてくださいな。あんたリカちゃまに大層気に入られたみたいだしね。
赤坂は明日も来ますですか？明日は5次元で終わりですから3時くらいに来てくれると嬉しいのですよ。
Please come again. That pure smile urged me to do so. There wasn't a trace of that evil aura. Depending on what happened next, all that might end up as nothing other than my hallucination. Thinking about it logically, if the daughter of the Furude household, one of the 3 families, had taken a liking to me, then this was a strong foothold for my investigation from here on out. It was like free tickets for a reason to visit Hinamizawa. If only I could treat that little incident as a figment of my imagination, then having this little girl who was the embodiment of my ideal daughter grow so attached to me wasn't so bad either. I had successfully dove into the belly of the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance and had the mayor as well as the other important members of the alliance welcoming me with open arms. This was a great turn of events. However, I still feel uneasy. Getting back to the hotel forced down an almost painfully cold beer until I could clear my mind. The shock from that incomprehensibly strange incident continued to torment me. Yo, nerd, welcome. You missed the Nepocalypse, because that was literally the start of today's stream. There was so much Nepa, it was ridiculous. You thought only Rika Nepa. That is not true. That is not true whatsoever. Alright, we got 3 tips, and then we're going to take a break and do another chapter. Because that's how we roll around here. That's how we roll around here on Friday nights. Alright.
Going smoothly.
The sound of the car drew closer, followed by the sound of it braking as the engine cut out. At that moment, his up until now lackadaisical footsteps grew decisive as a man in the room dashed up to the wall beside the window and carefully peered outside. It was his comrade's car. Even so, he still didn't relax his guard. Eventually, the sound of his footsteps approached the door. Bump, 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 bump. It was a passcode.
帰ってきたね。開けちょくれな。俺だ。ああ、お疲れ。今開ける。
After the locks were undone and the door opened, a man appeared, his arms laden with swollen plastic grocery bags. The bags in his hand had Sevens Mart written on them, with bread and milk cartons able to be glimpsed from within. The contents of those bags were spread out over a sheet on the floor.
カップラーメン買ってきちゃう。お湯沸かせな。小僧はどうしてる？ん？ずっと寝てる。手がかからなくて助かるよ。うんこ垂れるときは騒ぐけどな。漏らさせんな。練習は万一の時、やばいって。
Don't let hostages, like if you're ever taken hostage, I guess that's the play. Just crap your pants.
分かってるよ。
You were crying for 30 minutes today. I'm assuming for Tsumi Horoboshi and not this, because I know that you're in Tsumi Horoboshi right now.
猿グツワは
Saw you
定期的
streaming
に
earlier,
チェ
but I
ッ
didn't
ク。
stop by because I didn't want to
外
spoil
れても
myself
ま
too
ずい。
much.
きつくも締め付けちゃあん。窒息させたら意味がな。分かってるって。あれ、携帯コンロのガス管頼まなかった？もうガスねえよ。聞いてねえ。だは。
Yeah, idiot! Yeah, idiot!
ついてくれよ。くそ、くそ。
He ran up the portable stove as he struggled to get it to light. Seeing that, the man who went to buy supplies let out a deep sigh. And with a backwards glance at that sight, began to walk to the corner of the room. The kidnapped boy was sprawled out in a sheet that had been spread out on the
小
floor.
僧、元気かいね。
Of course, the man didn't assume the kid was able to hear the question. That was because the boy's ears were plugged and his eyes and ears were thoroughly covered by packing tape. Also, his mouth was gagged and was a thin, twisted up towel. Because of that, the boy was unable to close his mouth properly, his cheeks sticky with his own saliva. Of course, that wasn't the only reason. Both his arms were tied tightly behind his back with a leather
今ん
belt.
ところ順調らし。お前のじいさんがしぶりよったん。耳たぶの一つも切り落とさなきゃならんかったんけ。やらんくて済んで助かりよんよ。本家はこうと決めたら鬼やんね。どんな残酷なこと命令するかも想像つかん。その本家が小僧に傷一つつけるな言うてんから、とにかく順調なんだろんな。大臣はダム計画を撤回で水面下工作。ひなみ沢ダム計画は無期凍結へ。
Well, damn, that was solved in a hurry.
小僧の解放はいつ頃になるんだろうな。早く一服したいもんだぜ。
Where's Kiryu at?
本家が決着のタイミング測ってるらしい。いつになるかはあらんが近いうちやんな。よかったな小僧。もうじき解放されるぞ。
The men didn't know if their voices were heard by the boy. For him, there was nothing he could do but continue to sleep to escape this harsh
それよ。
reality.
ガスをどうするんね。ラーメン食えんよ。
I mean, there is a dojima in Yakuza. I'm pretty sure.
ガス切れたなら言うてえなもう。
Yeah, Dojima is the boss of the gang. That's what I thought. Alright. I can't wait to get to this one over here. That one's gonna be so good. Why I like rainy days! The weather forecaster predicted that it wouldn't rain at all this entire week. It's not that I hate sunny days or anything. When every day is the same, unchanging sunny weather, however, anybody would long for a rain cloud or two. If it's simply clear skies for a week, a month, a year, anybody would long for a rain cloud or two. The weather specialists said that they had carefully scrutinized a large quantity of past data, so it wouldn't be so likely that the forecast to be wrong. I knew as much. But even then, there was occasionally a day where I was hoping that it would be wrong as I stared up into the clear blue sky. Was I being mischievous and hoping so? I waited and waited, feeling almost suffocated by the boring blue sky and disturbed by a single cloud. If you could die from that suffocating feeling, then the population of Earth would probably wouldn't have increased to this point. In other words, the only person that was being suffocated by this was me. And so, I welcomed the summer evenings where not even the weather forecast could predict a sudden shower. If I were to explain it like this, would you understand it a bit more about how I feel? Let's say tonight's dinner was going to be curry rice. I'm down for that. But when you're called down to the dinner table, what was waiting for you was instead an eggplant and bell pepper stir fry. Well, I'm not so big on eggplant. This is just on your mother's whim, by the way. I would be delighted by such whimsy. I don't really like eggplants or bell peppers, but still, I would be delighted. The fact that the pre-established routine of curry rice had been broken would be amusing. If tonight was repeated 100 times, and 100 times you had to eat curry rice, yet for this one night, that was changed to an eggplant and bell pepper stir fry. There's no way you couldn't enjoy that chance happening. I hate pre-established routines. I really hate when things are all decided beforehand. I have no love for boredom. I always get my hopes up that something today will be different from yesterday, no matter how trivial. It's been decided that this entire week, starting today, was going to be clear skies. The weather forecast decided upon it, so the god of weather must also feel obliged to do so. But who's to say that the rain cloud might not just show up? Who's to say a rain cloud might not just show up on a whim? It's something that nobody can say for sure, but because that thought remains in this world, a creature such as myself can continue living without being suffocated. Tomorrow will probably be a hot and clear day. However, I'm the only one that knows that predetermined fate, even with but a slim 1% chance, it sometimes changes. Hoping for that 1%, I hung upside down weather charms on my sunlit eaves trough. In the end, I spend my days waiting for those unexpected things in life to happen. I pondered why I was hoping for it. Why was I hoping for a rain cloud? The answer was simple. I've had my fill of clear skies. And why was I hoping for a rain cloud? The answer was simple. The fact that it was going to be sunny tomorrow was boring. So why was I hoping for a rain cloud? In the end, it doesn't really matter whether it rains or shines tomorrow. Basically, it was just that the rain would water my heart, which was withered from boredom. That's why, rather than a TV drama where the plot's already been decided, I prefer to look up at the sky. Interesting. Thank you. Alright, the one we've been waiting for. Here we go. We're finally gonna get to see.
だいぶ血圧も良くなってきましたよ。そのお年でこれだけの回復力があるのは、いやいや、感服するばかりです。お嬢さんなら100でも200でも元気にお過ごしになれますね。
The young doctor in his medical coat said as he undid the blood pressure cuff from the arm of the old woman tucked away in her futon.
入江の先生は本にお上手で。
Oh shit, she's got a graphic too!
身体な死に損ないは
I'm
早
almost
押しない
certain
と
that Oreo did
若者
not
の
have
邪魔
one.
になっていけんね。
Yep, doesn't have a manga gamer graphic, doesn't have an original graphic. The old lady Oreo laughed faintly, with a broad smile on her face. Then, turning towards the sliding door, she called out in a strong voice.
しみこさん、かたえこさんおらんね。入江先生に麦茶でも入れてやれやな。
The sound of rushed footsteps from the hallway drew closer until finally the door slid smoothly open. What it revealed was a young girl. It looked like the old lady's granddaughter.
シミコさんは今日はもう上がっちゃったよ。
Check it
何かよ。
out! Oh my god, it's Baby MION! It's so good! It's so good! Oh my god! What about Manga Gamer? Nope. Not original either. Nope. Or wait, I don't think it changes. Yeah, there we go. Oh wow, what? That's her younger sprite in the Manga Gamer version? And it's just a normal sprite in the original game. Yeah, I'm kind of into this, like, the hoodie thing. Like, that's a real cool look.
ミオン、入江の先生に麦茶を入れたってんな。
うん、了解。抹茶も飲む？紅茶の方がいい？砂糖もミルクもたっぷり？
わしが加減するから入れんでええんね。砂糖壺とミルクも一緒に持ってきてんな。
はいはい。
The girl named MION, after giving a rather uninterested response to her taskmaster of a grandmother, returned to the
先
hallway.
生の麦茶は来客用のガラスジャーに入れるんよ。ちゃんとお座布団もつけてな。水滴もちゃんと拭き取っとくんね。
待ってるって、うっさいな。
You are such a fussy pants. You listen here! You listen here, fussy pants! I'm not gonna have any of that fussy pants around here. You hear me? Fussy pants. Goddamn fussy pants, every single one of you. Damn fussy pants. Tired voice wafted a reply from down the hallway. The apathetic tone of the voice was far from unusual. The old lady let out a wry smile slip across her face as she chided the girl.
しょうがないやっちゃな。叱られるうちが離んねえなったく。
おりょうさんおりょうさん、まあそこまでは言わなくてもミオンちゃんも若いなりに頑張ってますから。
あれの母親もな、しょうがないやっちゃったんね。よう似とる。
でその母親の母親もまたそっくりなんじゃないですか？
The old lady burst out laughing. Her expression showed she hadn't taken the comment the wrong
入江
way.
先生、申し訳ない。症状開けてもらえんけんね。風が涼しそうだわ。
The cool chirping of the Higurashi had at some point started leaking through the gap in the doorway. ADA stood up and opened the door a bit. A refreshing breeze pushed out the stale air that had built up in the room.
日中はだいぶ暑くなったように思うんですが、まだ朝夕は涼しいですね。夕べは少し肌寒いくらいでした。
そんな朝夕もまたひなみ沢のいいところな。
Idia replied with a smile as he returned to sit on the cushion beside the old lady. And then the two of them, for a little while, soaked in the voices of the Higurashi.
わしゃ100まで生きにせ。もうしばらくは死ねんよ。
Oh, this lady's got goals.
ダムの剣きっちり蹴りつけるまでは勘の蓋かって収まらんわ。
国が一度決めたことを撤回するのはなかなか難しいでしょうね。
国のやることはないつの世もイシウス回すみたいなもんね。そんでもだいぶ重いやっちゃ。
イシウスですか？
知らんねか、イシウス。
Idia quickly affirmed that of course he knew what the old lady was talking about, for he knew full well that Oreo didn't like having her stories
国
interrupted.
のイシウスはなんでもゴリゴリ引いちまう。大したもんよ。でも簡単には回らない。 重い石臼なんねんな。たくさんの人間がせーのってやってようやくじりじりと動き出す、そんな石臼なんよ。
Hey, John. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Sorry about everything that's going on lately. I know it sucks. Hang in there, dude. We got you. We'll do what we can. Irie pursed his lips, listening quietly to what she was saying. Eventually, Mion returned with some tea laid out. We've got many Mion though, John. Look what you missed. You missed super tiny RIKA. You missed the Nipa battle of a lifetime. It was incredible. The start of today's stream was incredible. Minion, so perfect. Eventually, Mion returned with tea laid out on a tray. Seeing that Oreo was talking and in a good mood, she quietly knelt down and laid out the sets for the barley and black tea, careful not to interrupt.
だから一度回り始めたら簡単には止められんね。回し始める一番初めが一番重い。それが嫌だからみんな手を休めんとゴリゴリ回し続けるんね。
Oh yeah, John, the manga gamer version is literally, we gave her a red shirt. We gave her a red shirt and we shrunk her a little bit. We shrunk the sprite a little bit.
摩擦係数の話でしょ。確かにバッチャの話、理屈はあるね。
OG Ine is a trip too, yeah.
ちゅうことはだ。何かの間違いで突然石臼が止まっちまったら、また回すにゃどえらい力がかかる。ちゅうこったな。
確かに一度中断した計画をもう一度動かすのに必要なエネルギーはかなりのものでしょうね。
簡単には止められん石臼だけどな。一度止めれば二度とは回らん。そういう石臼よ。
Yeah, he's pretty good. The manga gamer EDA. Original EDA is a little bit of a train wreck.
石臼を止めるいい手があればいいんですがね。
When EDA responded with that, Mion and the old lady suddenly sunk into silence. EDA instinctively, thinking he had said something rude, searched in a small painting for the words to correct himself, but that silence wasn't the result of rude words. For what crept across Mion and the old lady's faces were contemptuous smiles. Yo, yeah, okay, all right, good. This is good. This is fine. There's nothing ominous about this. The atmosphere surrounding EDA suddenly froze, leaving him flabbergasted. Thinking that the scornful smiles creeping across both of their faces was the same result as some mistake of his, he could only grow afraid. It hadn't been that long at all since he was enveloped by silence. However, unable to stand it, Idia could only let out a weak laugh. Idia's laugh eventually spread to Mion and the old lady. Not knowing exactly what they were laughing at, their laughter left a lingering chill. The only ones not laughing were the Higurashi, who continued their simple and unchanging chorus. Oh my god. Get out of here. Alright. We're going to take like a 5-minute break or so and be back, and we're going to do the next chapter. So. Boom. We'll be right back. Get up and do whatever it is you got to do. And we'll be back. Womp womp womp. Okay, I'm looking at my dashboard. And I didn't get notifications for these for some reason. But Sayara and June are owed something. So when I have confirmation that they are here, or are still here, they shall be thusly redeemed. And so it goes. Nippon! And one for June Flower as well. Nippon! There you go. Yeah, those did not show up as redeemed for some reason in the chat. I only just saw them because I looked at my dashboard and they showed up in the activity feed. So apologies for that. I'm not sure why they didn't show up in chat. So we will check the reward queue. I'm seeing 3 of them. Or, okay, no, those are from 15 days ago. For some reason, those are not clearing out. Okay. There we go. Clean conscience. It's all good now. We got to fix. All debts have been paid. Alrighty. Let's get back to things, shall we? What could possibly happen next? Things are only going to go well. We were just told to go back to Tokyo, and then we're going to spend the next day hanging out with RIKA. It's going to be great. What could possibly go wrong? The phone suddenly rang. I woke up in a hurry. The clock read 9 p.m.
しまった。定時連絡の時間を。
I hope not. I don't want tea with that old lady again. That is never happening again. I picked up the receiver.
赤坂様、外線からお電話が入っておりますが、おつなぎしてもよろしいでしょう
Got
か。
a call from an outside line.
ご同僚の加納様と申されております。
I knew it. I didn't call in, so they'd
す
phoned
みません
me.
つないでください。
かしこまりました。おつなぎしますので、一度受話器を置いてお待ちください。
After I had put down the receiver for a few seconds, the phone began to ring again.
はい、もしもし。赤坂です。
赤坂くん、加納です。お疲れ様。定時連絡がなかったので、こちらからかけました。そちらの状況はどう？
Leaving the lecture for later, my senior coworker got straight to the
今日はひなみ沢村へ実島に行きました。観光客を装うことで村長以下の何人かの死守同盟の要人との接触に成功。何も聞き出すには至りませんでしたが、好印象を得て明日以降へのつなぎを作ることができました。
そう。なかなか手際がいいね。赤坂くんのどこか初々しい感じがむしろ武器になったのかもしれないね。まずは上守備ってところかな。
比較するほど経験がないので上守備かは分かりませんが、とりあえず今日のところは順調だと思います。
県警での情報や地元警察の公安での情報と照らしてどう？鬼ヶ淵死守同盟は白っぽい？
I still didn't know. I should have been able to say that immediately. I only had to say that, but for some reason I hesitated.
まだ調査中ですので、なんとも。
そう、なるべく早めにね。分かってると思うけど、今夜が終われば誘拐から丸4日が経過する。いつが時間切れという明白な区切りはないけど、時間の経過は確実に我々の状況を不利にしていく。それは分かってるよね。
ええ、分かっています。迅速に。だけれど細心の注意で調査を続けます。
うん。くれぐれも気をつけてね。相手は暴力主義団体なんだから、油断すれば危険もあり得るからね。危険が迫ったらすぐに連絡を。その場合は地元公安に応援体制を入れられるようにするからね。
ありがとうございます。頑張ります。
他に赤坂くんの方から連絡はある？
I reported several bits of supplementary information, and at the very end I decided to ask.
そちらの調査の進展はどうですか？
こっちもみんな頑張ってるけど、なかなかはかどらないよ。何しろ調べる団体が星の数だからね。だから君の方の団体も白だと分かったらすぐに帰郷して他の職員の応援に入ってもらいたいんだよ。室長は鬼ヶ淵も洗っとけって言ってるけど、俺は鬼ヶ淵なんかの反ダム住民団体なんかは今回の件全く無縁だと思ってるからね。職員一人を一団体調べさせるためだけに出張させるのはすごく痛いよ、ほんと。
This point, he was just complaining. He was letting me stop talk. He was telling me to stop taking time enjoying my trip, to finish up and get back.
なるべく早めにケリをつけるようにします。
よろしくね。じゃあ他に何もなければ切るよ。
はい、特にありません。
As we were ending our call, he scolded me thoroughly for being late with my regular report. After that, I hung up the phone and sprawled out on the bed. Come to think of it, I hadn't heard anything from Oishi. He was supposed to contact me about a time and place to meet with the informant tonight. I thought about getting angry with Oishi in retaliation for being scolded for forgetting my daily report. Come to think of it, though, Oishi didn't really say anything other than that he was going to call tonight. Waiting for a phone call when you didn't know what time it was going to come was in itself rather difficult. Just when I thought that, the phone rang. I picked up the receiver in a hurry.
もしもし。
これはびっくりしました。赤坂さん、あなた受話器取るの早いですね。
Oh, we brought back the sexy cop music. Give me that Casio saxophone. I need it in my life right now.
警官辞めても大企業の営業で十分飯が食えますよ。
まだ警官辞めた後のことなんか考えたこともありません。
そこまで過剰に反応されると面白いな。しかしいけないな。因果な商売ですし、今から考えても遅くないですよ。
Lewd fun with Oishi, everybody. Lewd fun with Oishi.
遠慮いたしますので本題に入ってください、大石さん。
そうですか。それは残念です。じゃあ老後の話は次の機会にでも。では本題に。
Many of the executives in the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance had a lot of sway in the neighboring regions. Even in Okinomiya, there were a lot of people with relations in the village. That's why meeting in the Shishibone Market District, far from Okinomiya, was a matter of course.
赤坂さん、こっちこっち。ちょっと迷いましたか。北口からの方が遠回りだけど道は分かりやすかったかもしれませんね。
いえ、遅れて申し訳ありませんでした。
夕飯はもう食べちゃいました？
ええ、済ませてあります。
じゃあお酒の飲めるお店に行きましょうか。洋酒派？日本酒派？女の子のいる店といない店はどっちがいいですかね。
お構いなく。勤務中は飲みませんので。
Hearing that, the man that Oishi had brought along went along, bent backwards as he guffawed, clapping Oishi on the shoulder.
ねえ、初々しい人でしょ。その分ちょっぴりサービスしてあげてくださいよ。あのお金は全部彼のお財布から出てるんですからね。
The man that Oishi had brought seemed almost like a ticket scalper or a bookie. Even his appearance was dubious. He was invisible. The informant grinned deviously.
おい坊主、お前旦那にいくら渡した？だいぶ途中でつまみ食いされてんぞ。
大石氏への仲介手数料も含めていますから、それも含んだ上です。
It seemed like the informant had expected more extravagant reaction on my part. When I responded matter-of-factly, he realized that I was an entirely different type of person than he was. But rather than putting a distance between us, it seemed like I had piqued his interest.
だから言ったでしょ。真面目な人なんです。でもね、赤坂さん、 私たちのような職種の人間は豊富な社会経験がとても武器になるんですよ。
女の子がいてお酒が飲めるお店での経験がどう武器になるか疑問です。
The informant, unable to contain himself, clutched at his stomach as he guffawed, heedless of the people watching.
いや、もう。
Oh lordy! Oh lordy! Oh man, we got Oishi throwing some southern twang on it now. Oh good lord.
赤坂さんはいちいち察しがいいな。よっ、さすが高学歴。
大石さん、あなたどこかで飲んできましたね。酔っ払ってます。
オフタイムに飲んで何が悪いんですか？あなたは勤務中でも私はオフ。オフ。
Oishi, who was the sort to fool around to begin with, was in such a good mood I couldn't figure out a way to deal with him. Completely different than me, who had come worried about getting every bit of information I could, Oishi-san. After taking so much money, you were supposed to get me an informant worth at least as much. I thought this, but then realized that I was getting my information from the informant, so it didn't matter how drunk Oishi was. It was nothing I could complain about, but I still felt slightly riled up. Oishi and the informant, it was no doubt a fake name, but he introduced himself as Sato, led the way deeper and deeper into the back streets of the market district. Even though the market was bustling, a couple of turns off the main street and you were in a desolate alleyway. Oishi started climbing a set of stairs on the side of a seedy building. There wasn't any sort of signage, so I couldn't tell if the place was open or if it was even a store at all.
安心してください。怪しい店じゃありませんよ。
His words, coming from Oishi's mouth, had absolutely no credibility. Beyond the door was thankfully a typical mahjong parlor. I was relieved that it wasn't the sort of suspicious place I had to be on my guard about.
はい、いらっしゃい。あら、大石さん、お久しぶり。こっち入ります？すぐ開きますよ。
いいえ。今日はセットですからいいです。お、待たせましたね。
We're gonna play mahjong. Mahjong is a game played with 4 people. It seemed like the middle-aged man who was going to be our 4th had already arrived and was waiting for us.
遅えぞクラウド。俺はもう消えろと思ってたんだから。
Oishi made an excuse for why he had taken so long. Eventually realizing that I was a new face, the other man grew interested.
彼は赤坂さん。東京からはるばる出張されてきた将来有望な新人さんです。
坊主、お前麻雀はできんのか？
まあ、学生時代にそこそこに。
Sato and the old man cackled in unison. Their plot to sucker me out of my money was painfully obvious.
緊張続きの出張で疲れておいでだろうと思いましてね。一つ今夜は心の選択でもして差し上げましょうかと思いまして。
今さら野暮なことを聞きますが、私たち警察官ですよね。
まあそれは一個なしで。なに、実際にはかけるわけじゃありませんよ。この後いいお店に遊びに行くときに誰が全員分を払うのか決めるだけですって。遊
びに行く？どんな店に遊びに行くんですか？
Without reservation, the 3 of them started suggesting places like cabarets, high-class clubs, and even brothels. At the very least, they were the type of places that you couldn't go to without money that was just for funsies.
私のお金は先日、大石さんに根こそぎ預けて支払いは不可能ですし、仕事の都合があるので長居はできないのですが。
じゃあ坊主が勝てばいいじゃねえかよ。おめえが勝ったらこの雀荘の支払いはなしで、クラウドに仕事の話でも何でもすればいい。
No matter what happened, it seemed like they were intent on playing mahjong for free. I would have to fasten my resolve a bit. If I was going to be underestimated like this forever, it was going to get in the way of my
わ
work.
かりました。では少しだけお付き合い。私が勝ったらアフターの遊びは一切なしですぐに仕事の話に入ってもらいますからね。
いいですとも。
俺が勝ったらフラワーのブルーマーメイドに直行だからね。
おやっさんも好きだな。私はもちろん馴染みの店をはしごしまくりですよ。あっけみちゃん。佐藤さんはどうします？
私は静かに飲めるお店でいいですよ。
静かにバニーさんとでしょ。この間飲みに行った時、あとバニーさんの尻尾を引っこ抜いちゃったでしょ。あれ結局弁償だったの？
マスターに縫製代とか言われて一本ドンペリ開けられたな。
What a lively table this was. I could tell the other customers were glaring at us while we loudly continued our rude conversation. Speaking of which, the fact that they assumed that I was the same was a bit disheartening. I wish she had taken all the money I'd brought, so everything I had left was out of my own pocket. In addition, there wasn't that much left of that either. If I kept on hanging around him like this, through his goading, my wallet would disappear into the night. I had to somehow win and return the conversation to my job, but these people, no matter how you looked at it, were pretty good. Sorry, Yuki. Yo, everybody, it's club game time.
そんじゃこれでリーチっと。
Well, the old man and Sato probably won't fall for this silly Riichi. I wonder if Akasaka-kun will spit out what I need.
クラウドのリーチなんざどうせこの辺だろ。この辺なら通るだろ。それ。
Oh, the old man's pretty good. He's quietly trying to use one of my safe tiles to complete his hand, isn't he? It seems that Akasaka-kun has at least learned the ropes when it comes to guarding against someone's Riichi. But that will be his
どうした
downfall.
坊主。サクッと切らねえかい。よくわからなかったらクラウドと同じもんを切ってりゃ安全だぞ。
Oh, Akasaka-kun, really fretting over this one. It was glaringly obvious that he had a safe tile to discard, but he didn't want to throw it away because it would move him further from completing his hand. They're so nice when they're young and innocent. Come on, hurry up and throw out the kicker. If he gave me the winning tile, we'd be headed to an establishment where I could do with all sorts of licking and sucking. Oh my fucking god. Oh god. If he gives the old man a winning tile, we'd be headed straight to the place with maids in
これ
bloomers.
は通りますか？
He looked up as he hesitantly threw out a tile that was, oh, too
おい
bad.
おい、危ねえパイだぞ。クラウド、通るのか。
It seems this time you were lucky, but as long as the round kept going, I could still win off of the draw. But after that, Akasaka-kun managed to luckily avoid throwing any bad tiles, and somehow the round managed to end without anybody completing a hand.
天敗。
当然。
Let us on a keenly anticipated the two players were in Riichi and had decided to play it safe. What a cool-headed way of playing. Now let's see, what kind of hand did Akasaka-kun have? When the road ends with nobody winning in Mahjong, anybody on Tenpai has to show their hand. But if you're not in Tenpai, you have no obligation to reveal it. Your average beginner would normally show their hand even if they weren't in Tenpai and start a commotion about how if this tile or that tile came, they would be in Tenpai, but he didn't, being stingy.
どうだって坊主。ちょっと見せてみ。
Yeah, it was an interesting way to shift. I wasn't expecting that. Sato-san reached over to flip the hand that Akasaka-kun had casually placed face down. He was nowhere near Tenpai, and Akasaka-kun totally bad at this after all? But then, as the old man compared the tiles from Akasaka-kun's hand to the discard pool, a puzzled expression crossed his face.
おめえ、この辺りで張っとるだろ。どうして切った？
マンズの高いあたりが急に高騰しましたので抑えました。大石さんのリーチに対して安全性が高まったのにです。筋でさばけば無難なのにわざわざ抑えた方がいる。
おう。
Yeah, really powerful energy. Powerful
トラウドの
Oishi
天敗など
energy.
鼻から論外っていうわけか？
相当高度な引っ掛けでなければ私の宝珠を期待したぬるめの手かと思って。それよりもダマで張ったあなたの方がとりあえずは問題でした。
いつ天敗したのに気づいた？
この辺りですか。4タイムで4連続で切ってますよね。初めは食い替えかと思いましたが私をチラチラ見ていたので期待しているんだと気づきました。
赤坂さん、あんた麻雀始めてどのくらい？
高校から大学くらいまでの間しかやった。さあ続けましょう。佐藤さんはテンパイしなかったから流れて次は私ですね。親。
Seems like Akasaka-kun is really aware of how the game flows. We thought we were just going to eat him alive, but it looks like that isn't going to be so easy.
大石さん、想図が濃すいですね。
Look at him go! Look at him go! He even gets a CG! We get an Akasaka CG!
回しますか。
この坊主。クラウド、降りるな。
あと3つ。いい牌が来ればな。佐藤さんはうまくいきそうです。
くそ、食いたんで引きずり下ろすか。G だ。
C ですか。じゃあすみません。それポンです。
Whoa now, we're gonna call 3 of a kind after he declared a straight, trying to override an interference.
坊主、おめえ離れしとるな。
まさか私が生まれる前から打ってるような方々とは比べようもないですよ。あ、それです。どうトイトイ赤のドラさん。親ですからね。ちょっぴり高いですよ。
くわっ
赤坂さんやるな。そりゃ我々も本気を出さないとね。
本気のついでに展望も出してもらいましょうかね。私は眠いんで手っ取り早く終わらせます。
This is somehow unreal. Before I could realize it, there was an ominous cold air emitting from beneath Akasaka-kun's feet. And now he gets lightning! This boy is playing Mahjong for real. Oh, it was definitely like, oh, we get to be the cop. Great. And then you find out he's a fucking centrist as well. He's so... Oh my god. Everything about this guy is just... This guy thinks democracy works.
マンズのリャンウーパーが笑ってませんか。
ちくしょう。坊主てめえ。クラウド、おめえ差し込め。坊主の親、とっととおろすだ。
悔しいですが、どうやらそうした方が賢明なようですね。
出た。ローだ。はいよドライチ。
すみませんね。頭っ鼻です。ピンフ。
頭っぱねだ。小僧のくせに。
小僧が相手だとバカバカしくて手を緩むってわけじゃんだ。その小僧以下って ってわけですね。
Get dumpstered, old guy.
面白いな。あんたら連中は決まって小僧だ坊主だって言うよ。
あ、赤坂くんですよね。なんだかムードが変わりまくりなんですね。
私をかもって今晩はいいお酒を飲むおつもりだったんでしょうが、どうやら皆さんの当ては外れそうです。単品3色赤1ドラ1。
おお、張ってやがったか。
だからあんたぬるいよ。いくらダマだからってこんなにぬるい三面なんだから読んでくれなくっちゃ。
Akasaka-kun chuckled as he rested his chin on his hands. That pose was so fitting it was almost scary.
おいクラウド、話がちげえぞ。初々しいカモがネギ背負ってきたって言ったのは誰だ。
いや誰でしょうね。
おいさ、まずいよ。このままじゃ負けるよマジで。
Akasaka-kun, for you to make me get serious. Looks like you really want to be milked dry. Oh god. Don't say that.
ポン、気前がいいですね。もう一回ポンです。
Akasaka-kun was almost singing at this point. The tiles he had open were all pin tiles. You can't be serious. Are you really going for the flush?
坊主、正気か。4つも晒したらおめっぱいが1つだけじゃねえかよ。
そうですね。知ってます？短期待ちって一番読まれにくいらしいですよ。
バカかてめえ。そこまで染めて晒しといて今更出ると思うんじゃね
え。読めてますよ赤坂さん。それ均一でも本一でもないんでしょう。4つポンした時点でトイトイは成立してますからね。あんた今絶好の単独トップ。こいつは均一と見せかけてトイトイで食おうという挑発手でしょう。
そう思うならピンズ切ってみます？大石さんの範囲の左5つ、さっきから切り損ねてるピンズですよね。それを端から順に切ってみたらいいんじゃないですか？
You must be joking. Is he a mahjong god? If not, he had the main character of. If not, he had to be the main character of a manga or something. At that moment, the old man sent me a sign under the table. The message was simple and clear.
やれ、叩き潰せ。
こんな若い子に様は好きじゃないんですがね。
あう、ここまで舐められて今さら弾けるか。
Wow, are we really doing this?
知りませんよ。ではどうぞ。
行くぞ坊主。リーチだ。オープンで行くぞ。ピンズの一数値待ちだ。
Most likely the tile that Akasaka-kun was waiting for was one of those tiles. With this, Akasaka-kun was no longer capable of winning the hand. When I drew from the wall, I switched out the tile that Akasaka-kun would draw. The tile that I put was a 1-pin. One of the tiles that the old man was waiting on. Akasaka-kun discarded it a little while ago, so there was no threat to it being one he needed.
おい、坊主の番だぜ。
I knew he was trouble. That tile he drew was a 1-pin. Of course, he couldn't discard
坊
it.
主、分かってると思うが、オープンリーチに振り込んだら100万払いだぜ。
言われるまでもありませんよ。
The tile that came from Akasaka-kun's hand was an honor tile. Yeah, ain't that something? There's only one north wind tile left, isn't there? You were counting on a really rough wait there, weren't you? But with this, Akasaka-kun's fate was decided.
命拾いしたな。だが手配は1名。逃げ切れなくなることもあるんじゃねえのか。
Oh damn! It just turned on fire behind him now instead of lightning. Like we're just like, oh, it's just a straight up explosion. Akasaka-kun glared at the old man with a discerning eye. This guy had a pretty good instinct. He'd figure out we were cheating.
やめましょうよ、やっさん。赤坂君の方が2、3枚は上手です。
バル、ここまで来てやめられるか。次行け、捕ませちまえ。
The next tile Akasaka-kun would draw was the 7 pin. With that, it would be settled. No matter which one he discarded, he'd play right into the old man's hand. An unavoidable full payout. When I drew my tile, I sneakily swapped Akasaka-san. Oh, what? Akasaka-kun suddenly sneezed, collapsing a wall of tiles in front of him.
おいおい、何やってんだ。
すみません。ついくしゃみをした拍子に山を崩しちゃって。
Whoops! Whoops!
バップ払いですね。親だから4000オールですか？それともバップは積み棒に？
Unable to hold back Igafod, Akasaka-kun, knowing he was going to be cornered a second time and unable to escape, he took the drastic measure of knocking over his own
や
wall.
るなあ、坊主。100万払いをそう言ってて防ぐとはな。
大石さんもそんな見え見えの積み込みは勘弁してください。これが馬場なら今ので卓をひっくり返してたところですよ。
いえいえいえいえいえいえ。すみませんすみません。あなたを侮っていましたよ。あなたどうしてお強いじゃないですか。
正直に話さんかい。若い頃はだいぶ慣らしたんだろ。
早稲田高田の馬場あたりでだいぶ遊ばせてもらいました。ちょっと勝ちまくりすぎて馴染みの店に出禁を食らいました。
Oh, wow.
今の家内にだいぶ怒られて足を洗ったんです。
勝ちまくりすぎて？あんた当時はどのくらいの勝率でやってたの？
メンツにもよりましたが、歌舞伎町あたりで打つときはほぼ負けなしでした。特に相手があれ系の人のときは命かかってましたからね。
20 times? What kind of stakes were those? Did you have Yakuza at your table? Or pro baseball
なん
players?
だなんだ。クラウド、このタク。お前どっからこんなプロ雀士みたいなの引っ張ってきたんだ。もうやめだやめ。ああもう坊主、おめえの勝ちだ。降参。
ありがとうございます。光栄です。
いやいや。しかし赤坂さん、あんた打つと性格変わるね。なんで就職なんかしたの？あんたならフリーで十分に飯食っていけるじゃない。
プロ雀士には腕と突きの両方が必要なんですよ。私には後者がありませんでしたから。
好きなんてその時の運不運だろ。あんたほどの腕があれば十分にいけると思うがな。
波の突きじゃダメなんですよ。関したら3回に1回くらいはそのままカンドラが4つ乗ってここぞという時に狙ってリンシャンが引ける。そのくらいじゃないと。
赤坂君、そんなのが頻繁にできたらそれはもう超能力者ですよ。
いえ、イカ様でも超能力でもなく、そのくらいの打ち手は結構いるんですよ。新宿で知り合った泣くたびにドラが乗りまくる雀士なんか鬼のように強かったですし、横浜で打ったプロなんかは当たり前のように一発で引き当ててましたからね。私にはああいう月がないんです。
What type of folks were those? They weren't named Ryu or Satoshi by any
という
chance.
わけで総合トップは私でよろしいですね。
へいへいへい、乾杯でございますよ。
Hey, hey, hey!
負けた負けた。久しぶりに大負けだ。
Oishi is it's such an animated dude. Who knew?
しかし打ってる時の坊主気合入ってたな。結構怖かったぜ。
よく言われます。自分ではそんなに目つき変えてるつもりはないんですがね。そんなに怖い目になってましたか？
The three of us nodded emphatically in agreement. So that was Akasaka-kun, the Mahjong prodigy. Before he goes home to his assignment, maybe I could have him go play at a high-stakes table in my place. But it's not good to get greedy.
じゃあ仕方ないや。約束です。夜の学習会はこれでお開きにしましょう。申し訳ありませんね、おやっさん。今夜はこれでお開きです。
しゃあねえな。消えて寝るわ。体力つけんと体が持たん。
お仕事が大変なんですか？
ああ、おやっさんはひなみ沢ダムの第一工区の監督さんなんです。
Oh. That's interesting.
住民とは連日小競り合いをしてますからね。しんどい商売ですよ。
来年あたり第二工区も任されちまうかもしれねえな。
Yeah, you're gonna be in charge of that second site real soon, I
黒田
bet.
さん、血圧上がりまくりって聞いたしよ。身が持たねえや。
おやっさんなら大丈夫でしょう。あなた、見た目よりも面の皮厚めですしね。
俺だって仏じゃねえからな。腹渡にくり返る時あるぞ。特に園崎のあの小娘は我慢がならん。あいつの顔面いつか簡単には治らんくらいに歪ませたろって思ってる。
I would maybe watch my language.
まあ。でも給料はいいんでしょ？かなり破格の給金だって聞きましたよ。
おっとりめえだ。あんなに世知辛い職場で給料が安かったら誰も残らんよ。おいクラウド、警察はいつになったら村の人間全部追っ払ってくれるんだ。国から立ち退き命令とか出てるんだろ。
ねえ、どうなってるんでしょうね。
The old man, who identified himself as the foreman of the Hinamazawa Dam, spewed a few complaints until he felt better about it, then left quietly.
じゃ、行きましょう。あとは佐藤さんに任せますかね。
大石さんは帰られるんですか？
私が一緒でもお邪魔しちゃうだけでしょ。それに佐藤さんの仕事を買ったのはあなたです。私は対価を払ってませんからね。
Oishi-san was kind of sketchy, but he was strangely conscientious about some things. I felt quite a bit of a gap between myself and Oishi's generation from that part of him I didn't
じゃあ坊
comprehend.
主、いやジャンシ様にもう坊主なんて言えねえな。赤坂くんでよかったっけ？
はい。
じゃあ赤坂くん行こうか。
では赤坂さん。
I'll be right back in a second. Sorry about that.
また。何か困ったことがあったらいつでも頼りに来てくださいね。
大石さんにお支払いできるような対価はもう持ってませんよ。
んじゃ、今度の勝負で少し手加減してもらえたらチャラにしますよ。
Oishi, seemingly still not having had his fill of playing around, but without outstaying his welcome, disappeared into the night. Alright, are we gonna get our informant lore? The informant named Sato-san had me get into his car before he set off. He favored narrow roads and made numerous short left turns.
左折法による尾行確認ですか。
詳しいな。
Checking to see if you were being tailed by making left turns was a rather classic technique. It was just a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. But if you were being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you shake them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not.
赤坂君が何者かは旦那から何も聞いてないんだが、やっぱり警察関係かい？尾行確認に詳しいなんて、あとは探偵者くらいしか思いつかねえね。
言わなければならないものでないなら拒否したい質問ですね。
やれやれ。麻雀やってからすっかり雰囲気が大人びちまったな。会った時のあのおどおどしたあんたはどこ行っちゃったんだよ。
I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play mahjong. Thanks to that, it was able to relieve some attention. Eventually, Sato-san, confirming that there were no cars following us, slipped outside of the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything beside the lights outside. The only things I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insects and frogs.
旦那からひなみ沢村については多少のことは聞いてんだろ？
御三家という旧家による支配や、現在は園崎家が一党独裁をしているとか、そういう話ですか？
そこまで知ってるならくだらない前置きは省略していいな。
ではお願い、犬飼大臣の孫の誘拐に鬼ヶ淵主導名が関与しているか否かを。
Sato-san checked the rearview mirror one more time to confirm there wasn't anybody behind us before speaking.
昨夜園崎本家で親族会議が開かれたそうだ。親族会議ってのは旦那から聞いてるか？
いえ。
普通に親族会議って言ったらまあ親戚が集まってお茶でも飲むようなもんだよな。だが園崎本家の親族会議っていうのはそんなのんびりしたものってわけが違う。
Family council held at the Sonozaki main house. That would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa village. They would be talking about private family matters. It would be about the village as a whole, about organizing activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting would be Oryo Sonozaki, more or less called Empress Sonozaki, as the ultimate decision maker of the clan. She was to be feared and respected. Infirm with old age, she was often unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she had grown weak, and on days when she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. In the middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still in a futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face, that was Oryo Sonozaki. Sitting next to her was her heir, MION Sonozaki. She was still young. No, young wasn't quite the right word. She was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Oryo Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests, however. She was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Oryo. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anybody with so much as looked at them. Much was expected of her and her future, their granddaughter of the Sonozaki's leader. And also on either side sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyoshi family and the Furude family. First on the list was Kimiyoshi family, and of course was the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. And lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Opposite to them sat the other of the three families, the Furude family. The Furude family was only comprised of the family of a Shinto priest, so the only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, and their daughter, Rika. Rika was doted on by many of the older folk of the village, and it seemed that Orio was no exception. While the stress from just attending a family council was said to be enough to shorten your lifespan by 3 days, it seemed that Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. In fact, the night before, lying on her stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Orio's futon like it was a kotatsu. All this was the three families, and all around the room lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. The others were left to sit in a seiza position directly on the tatami mats. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined in their center, they were almost like a giant snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everybody would sit in order of their rank. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertained to the village was decided made determining where the balance of power was held in the three families as clear as day. The number of members and the attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Hinamizawa.
その会議で何が話されたんですか?
Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak.
マスコミ関係に支払ってる謝礼金の額が大きいんじゃないかい?
Breaking a long moment of silence was the head of the Kimiyoshi family, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. The Onigafuchi Defense Alliance wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organization pushing for the cancellation of the Hinamizawa Dam project with no reliable source of income. Fundraising had always been a problem. When they first started operating, they had managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations, but as the conflict dragged on, the amount was steadily declining.
石を投げるだけが全ての時代じゃないさ。マスコミの力も侮れないのは重々承知しているし、今後もその力を借りたいのは同じさ。
The expression of the people related to the Sonozaki family were sullen, as the one who suggested that they should borrow that power was the family head, Orio Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about force of arms. In the civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. Orio suggested that, creating a strategy incorporating the mass media. Orio's foresight was spot on, and the effects of the plan, while at first unclear, slowly began to manifest. If the physical confrontation of at the construction site was meant to delay progress on the dam by even 1 day, then the propaganda war used in the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first there were those who had doubts about the strategy, but there was nobody now who called those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But with the conflict continuing to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, the one who sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa three families, Orio, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that it should be so allowed. Nobody acknowledged that it should be so allowed, but nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with the mass media.
どうも、お嬢さん。
The one person who could object to the plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyoshi. Orio, with a hard-to-define expression on her face, as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyoshi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening or didn't even have the intention of listening at all.
去年機関士の値上げの理解を得るのにも随分苦労したじゃない。一度だけってことで理解を得て、また今年もってわけにはいかないよ。ねえ、フルテさん。
The mayor looked at the priest and his wife from the Furude family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response, but his wife gave an answer without a second thought.
そうですね。機関士代は特に貧しい家には大きな負担になっています。みんな自分たちの村のためだからと耐えていますが、これ以上の値上げはやめた方がいいでしょうね。
The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance. It outlined the Alliance's activities, ideals, and resolve, but you couldn't deny that its contents were rather piecemeal. The bulletin's main goal wasn't to inform the people, but rather was something to sell businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it would become something of a tax. Of course, it didn't have to be said that this was one of the main sources of income of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it had silently become the opposite. In the neighboring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads with the Alliance. The priest whispered to his wife to not say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Cowering from the glare, the priest shut his mouth. The priest's wife always held the power in the relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Furude bloodline. The priest merely married into the family. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. He should have been able to find a spot fairly high up in the hierarchy of things, but the lack of authority in his voice meant that he had still not gained any favor. Casting a backwards glance at her rather disparate parents, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signaled by a look from Orio, Mion brought her ear closer to her grandmother. Buy our dojin or else. Yeah, basically. There, something was said in her quiet voice. After responding to a couple questions and a nod from Orio, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words.
機関士の値上げもやむを得ません。
Kimiyoshi made a face like he had just bit into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly dissipated like it had never happened at all.
だけどミオンちゃん、君だって分かってると思うけど、機関士の負担は決して軽いものじゃない。南沢の全ての人間にかかる重みなんだ。あんまり負担をかけすぎれば内部から崩れることだって。
内部から崩れるのは誰ですか？
どれって別にそういう意味じゃ。
最初に崩れるのは誰かと聞いています。
Oh man, even as a young'un, Mion out here playing hardball. Being cross-examined by a girl who still had fragments of childishness remaining within her, the words struck Kimiyoshi's throat as he sunk into silence. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everybody refrained from making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were unarguably said in proxy for Orio. That's why when Mion spoke them, they carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Orio's, they had a hawkish gaze, strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was without question one that belonged to Mion herself. As Mion would eventually inherit everything from Orio, the day when she stood up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise, even for a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid.
Kimiyoshiさん、機関士の値上げごときでは誰の決意も崩れませんよ。
Kimiyoshi, while grumbling a little bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection.
マスコミ関係への出費は継続とします。その出費がさらに圧迫となるようなら、機関士の値上げもやむを得ない。
Mion had rendered her judgment. Everybody bowed their heads, silently listening to her
園崎家
words.
当主代行、園崎ミオンです。我が名において以上決定し、決定の効力は 即日発行されるものとします。異議はこれを認めず、抵抗ある場合は実力をもって排除します。
Oh damn, they're serious. The formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial, but there was a certain authority behind those words that even a courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signaling the matter was settled. Mion pulled out a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. Everybody present would only prostrate themselves before the harsh sound of the bell.
なんとも大時代的な親族会議ですね。
あんたみたいな若いもんにはちょっと信じられないだろうけどね。こういう古い土地にはこんなのが未だ根強く残ってるもんさ。
It was exactly as Oishi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished, and now the Sonozaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic.
会議はそれで終わりですか？
いや、まだ続く。先を続けるよ。
Eventually, after the ringing of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Within all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. When she was satisfied, she motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of the gang that her father was the leader of. The organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, so it was quite well known even here. Of course, this was talking about the criminal underworld, so it was just like anybody. So it's not like anybody would know. But just showing a patch with. My God, I'm gonna have a stroke. But just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighborhood. Mion's biological father, Tooryo, was her daughter's husband. The power of the man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. And so that man, from his position in the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everybody around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Was it only for her to tell what she had just directly heard from Oreo? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father gently but firmly nodded his response. Mion also nodded, then sidled up to Oreo and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying her message, separated herself from Oreo, and fixed her posture, waiting for Oreo to signal her response. It wasn't often that Oreo showed any emotion. That's why, when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everybody in the room.
そら、なんなこともあったものよの。
Oreo was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had to hesitantly ask.
どうしたんだい、お嬢さん。
我らにとって土地が母なら、この度のダムの騒ぎは母の命を脅かされる騒ぎっちゅうことだろうな。
Kimiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Oreo, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice.
ダムの親玉の大臣がの、孫さらわれちまって、右往左往しとるっちゅう話だ。これでおあいこだの。
Oh, damn. They doing the dirt. They are doing the dirt.
バカな。
Information on the kidnapping of Minister Inagai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anywhere. How did they know? Even if we didn't know much about the kidnapping incident, exactly how did an antiquated household far away from Tokyo come to know of it? It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa village. At some point, I had mentally filed this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. The mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind.
どうして、鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が知っているんだ。
That's pretty weird. Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into silence.
すみません。続きをお願いします。
なあ。
臨海建設大臣のお孫さんがさらわれた。お嬢さん、それは本当かい？
That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV, but in Himazawa there was nothing strange about Oreo knowing something that the rest of the world didn't.
我らの痛みは母を失う痛みじゃの。それに値するとは思わんが、孫を失う痛み。少しは答えるといいんじゃがの。なあ。
The last question wasn't addressed to anybody in particular. It was as if she was looking for a consensus.
だが、土地と人様の子供ではわけが違う。隠すのは構わんが、怪我だけはさせたくないもんだよな。ここには何の罪もねえ。大事にしたいな。
それはつまり鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が誘拐事件に関与しているということ。
うん。必ずしもそうとは言えね
えな。どうして当主であるお涼がこれほどまではっきりと誘拐した孫の処遇について指示を出しているのに。
兄さん、これはね、園崎家のいつものことなんだよ。
いつものこと？それはどういう意味です？
Let's say there was a particular problem. One that wasn't exactly favorable for the Sonozaki family. Yo, Ding! How's it going? Hope you're having a nice evening. We're reading a story. If Oreo shows concern over that particular problem, hearing that somebody who attended the family council would be hopeful. As a result, Oreo's wish would be granted. However, neither Oreo or anybody else would know who actually did it. With this kind of clever little ploy, the Sonozaki family was able to manipulate events even though they had their hands laid out on the table.
では、親族会議に出席していた誰かが犯人ということですか？
あるいはそもそも犯人なんかいない可能性だってあるよな。
Finally got home. Huge traffic. I hate evenings like that. I am not a fan of waiting in traffic at all. So I feel you. Traffic is garbage.
俺自身、その万座の一同の中に誘拐犯がいるって確信を持ってるわけじゃない。ただ、自分の意見を述べただけさ。
It was not an unpleasantly secret way of doing things. Were they involved or weren't they? I couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position somebody was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, they would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. The only other options were the people connected to the case itself. Including the minister, there were people affected by the incident. Or the people that committed it. In any case, there was no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo by over 6 hours of highway travel should know about it. Them knowing it all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow.
孫の誘拐についてお涼が述べたのはここまでだ。あんたの知りたかったことが含まれてりゃいいんだがな。
That is a great emote, by the way. Sip emote makes me happy. Makes me all kinds of 90s happy.
あとは兄ちゃんの仕事だな。何のお仕事やってるか知らんけど、園崎家を相手にするなら相当の覚悟でやっとけよ。大石の旦那は怖いもの知らずだけどな。あれでも 2,3 回は襲われてる。最近は着てないけど、一時はオフの時も防塵ベストを着込んでたんだよな。
Yep, Misato is like classic, like she is classic anime wifey, like that she's very classic anime wifey material. Fucked up in the head, but who in that show is not? Jesus Christ, Oishi out here wearing stab-proof vests.
忠告ありがとうございます。
標準語が流暢だよな。
Oh man, End of Evangelion is some kind of fucked up. Man, Jesus. Whoo boy, that movie is a lot. A lot of people don't like the end of the TV series, but I quite like it. I think it's very, very good. I understand that it's very budgety, and they had to do what they had to do, but they still told this. They still told the story of what they were trying to do there very well. Yeah, End of Evangelion is a fucking trip.
兄さんは東京とかの人？
え？それが何か？
Investigators were always close to danger. It was best not to divulge any information on myself.
兄さんのお仕事だけどさ。
Yeah, like I like both because they both serve different functions. The funny thing was, my favorite story to tell about this is that like I bought anime in the VHS days, back when it was 2 episodes per tape, and I'm old enough to where I was buying this series as it was releasing, and to get the 13th video, it only had episodes 25 and 26 on it. Imagine having friends over for an entertaining evening of watching anime, and the last 2 episodes of the Evangelion TV series being what you signed up for that night. That's just it was a weird fucking night. But I made up for it by getting End of Evangelion later, of course. That was obviously like your first time through that movie is a goddamn trip.
ひょっとして警視庁の公安部の人ってことある？
I think that could be fun. I think that kind of adds a little to it. I think that a lot of anime being produced in the 4:3 ratio and kind of being made for that kind of TV. Yeah, finding a way to do that from a laptop though could definitely be a problem. Like if you, I've still got a VCR hanging around because I've still got a sizable VHS collection from back in the day. So like I still have a VCR hanging around if I ever want to go and dig those out of storage. Oh, Excel Saga, another very fantastic show. It gets a little exhausting after a while. Oh yeah, like the last 2 episodes of Excel Saga are a trash fire, but I think that the last 2 episodes of Evangelion are fantastic. Like I don't hate them and I never did. It's just when you're a teenager and you just spent $30 on a videotape and what you get are the last 2 episodes of Evangelion, it's like, oh man, that's a lot to look at in the moment. I still have my Project Echo on VHS. I still have Vampire Hunter D on VHS. I have Akira on VHS. Original 1985 releases on those last 2, by the way. I still have those. There are pictures on my site of those, of still having those videos, so... I couldn't remain silent here. It would be the same thing as admitting it. Yeah, like when it finally pretended to have plot, it was amazing. Then it went, nah, yeah, okay, I get you. Oh man, like the days where laser discs. I know, I have in storage a Tenchi Muyo laser disc. Just 1 episode. One episode. I was just in, like, the first time I saw anime on TV, it looked like the coolest thing. Like, I was probably 8 or 9 when I saw anime for the first time. And then I started actively collecting it probably, like, when I was 12 or 13. I started collecting with the Tenchi Muyo because by then they were releasing it on VHS at 2 episodes at a time. So, buying 3 videotapes for that first OVA series wasn't too bad.
まさか
こっから旦那からもらった金の範囲には入らないんだが、兄さんとは今日宅を囲んだ仲間だからな。サービスってことで話してやるよ。お寮から誘拐の話が出た後、もう一つ話題が出たんだ。
One other topic that Oreo brought up. And right before he could tell me this, Sato-san asked if I was from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division. In other words, what those two things meant caused a chill to run up my spine.
そんででな、大臣の孫さらったのを調べるために東京からはるばる公安の捜査官が派遣されてくるっちゅう話だ。
Oh no.
公安の捜査官、大臣の孫の誘拐な。うかつにゃ大ごとにできゃんってことで、警視庁の公安部が独自で調べとるっちゅう話だ。はっ、大行なこったの。どうした？
Rika, who had been drawing the entire time and was completely uninterested in the conversation up until now, looked up at Oreo with an interested face as soon as the topic of public safety came up.
警視庁が来たのですか？
リカちゃまは警視庁も知ってなさるんかい。偉いの。
誰が来たのですか？
公安のどんなやつが来よったんか、誰ぞわかるやつはおらんかいな。
Mion's father raised his hand slightly.
新米の若造が一人と聞き及んでおります。
新米？ほかほかなのですか？
んええ、はい、新米とか。
Mion's father smiled wryly as he answered Rika's
ほ
question.
かほかのふかふか？
ええ。
ほかほかのふかふか？
Rika smiled with interest. Why did Rika suddenly act interested only when it came to this topic? That was a question that apparently nobody had the
リカ
answer
ちゃ
to.
まはその男のことを何か知っているのかな？
知んないのですよ。
After her rather flat reply, Rika buried herself underneath Orio's futon again. But when she buried herself there, Rika no longer started drawing again. Instead, she was making an expression like she was deep in contemplation.
どうしますか、お母さん。
Mion's father posed the question. He had the type of uncouth expression on his face, indicating that, given the order, he could snuff the problem out at any time.
はるばるひなみざまで来よった。しばらくはのんびりさせてやるのもよかろう。
泳がせろということでしょうか。
Mion's father asked in response. Oreo smiled thinly as she responded.
ほっといたれな。が、あんまりおいたが過ぎるようやった。そん時は遠慮せんとな。なめられるのはすっきゃせんね
え。なんて話があったそうだ。まさかあんたその警視庁の新米じゃないよな。
まさか。
The sensation of cold, bristling fear began to crawl its way up my back. This family council took place last night, in other words, yesterday. Then today, when I was dressed up as a tourist headed toward Hinamizawa, my cover was already blown. When I remembered the first person I met, when I got off the bus stop, I couldn't breathe. The person at the family council who expressed interest in the man being dispatched from the Metropolitan Police, Rika Furude. And then the person who was waiting for me the whole time in the bus shelter, Rika Furude. It was an unthinkable image. No, it was a delusion. When we met at the bus shelter, did Rika-chan already know my true identity? Did she know that I was Akasaka, dispatched from the Metropolitan Police Department, and come to meet me? Then, including Mayor Kimiyoshi, every villager that I met, everybody knew, but just pretended not to? because Oreo had given instructions to not interfere? Thinking about it logically, it didn't seem possible. I met quite a number of people, and if there's people that are good at acting, then there's people there. If there's people that are good at acting, there are people that are bad at hiding things. If there was that many people, then there should have been somebody among them who knew I was from public safety and couldn't hide their hostility. However, I didn't feel any presence like that. But then, even still, why did Oreo tell them to leave me alone? Was it because they were careless about it? Was it because if they were careless about it, it would only raise more suspicion, or was it because they believed a rookie like me wouldn't be able to find anything? Akasaka is a coward. I recall that strange voice which could only make me believe that Rika-chan had been possessed. That unknown entity, no matter how you looked at it, knew my true identity from the get-go. And then, how did it warn me again? That's right. It warned me to hurry up and go back to Tokyo. Instead of the realistic worry that the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance had discovered my true identity, the absurd worry brought on by the unknown girl stuck out with me more. What exactly was this girl? What was the thing I would eventually regret? That mysterious girl, Rika Furude. Let's stop this. Everything I was thinking of right now was merely conjecture. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'll report everything that I heard right now to HQ and await further orders. There was no mistaking that the possibility of the Onikafuchi Defense Alliance were related to this case was there. And that the fact that my cover was blown meant I was in a precarious situation. But as everybody at HQ was already extremely busy, they might not be able to spare the support. Yeah, she's got like a devious little smile.
よければ好きなところまで送るよ。
あ、すみません。では、お会いした元の駅までお願いします。
A rural road where even the street light was rare. I couldn't see anything. I wasn't aware of anything but the asphalt and that was lit up by the headlights. Outside of that light was it simply darkness, or was there something lurking there, waiting to strike? I had to think I drew the short straw here. I wanted to go back to Tokyo. For some reason, the voice of the girl warning me to go back to Tokyo still lingered in my head. Oh boy. Okay. 1978 is a bit more hopping than we thought it might be. Boy oh boy. What do we got? We got 3 more. We got 3 more tips. Maybe we'll learn something here. Maybe we'll get something. I'm gonna play it safe here. There we go. Now we'll have a look at those tips. The investigation runs aground.
昨日銀座の料亭でお会いしてね。そういう話が出たんだよ。
別室の謁見でしょう。連中、公安に干渉しすぎですよ。あまり迎合すると悪い洗礼を残しますね。
犬飼大臣は公安の動きに不快感をあらわにしているらしい。多分月曜の町議で次官からその旨の話が出るんじゃないかと思う。参ったな。
次官へは局長級に話つけてもらうしかないですよ。給料を多くもらってる人の当然の仕事ってことで。
まあそうなると局長からは絶対に大臣脅迫の物証を求められるよ
な。あの人たまにどっちの味方か分かんなくなりますね。うちらの味方しなくてどうすんのっての。
まあ多分大臣を経由しての圧力だと思ってるけどね。俺が時間室で油汗かいて時間稼ぐ間に調査進めてもらうしかないよな。全身の汗絞られて絞りかすになっちゃうかもしれないけどな。でどうなの？調査の進行は。
Oh, if anybody's streaming tonight, now would be a time to go ahead and do it, and I'll throw you the host. Just let me know when you're live, by the way, while we're finishing up these tips.
期待してた濃厚なラインがことごとく外れて
正直途方に暮れてます。
最近の大臣発言をまとめると、ひなみ沢ダムの計画の話が目立つっていう報告を聞いたけど、それはどうなの？
目立つっていうか、本当に微細な程度の違和感ですね。たまたま県議連でのスピーチだったから時事ネタを話しただけかもしれないし。
確か地元団体が過激に抵抗してるってやつだっけ？鬼ヶ淵死守同盟。確か赤坂君に調べてもらってたよね。
僕は連中には今回の事件は起こせないと踏んでいます。ですが疑わしいところのほとんどが真っ白な以上、疑いの枠から外すわけにはいかないかもですね。赤坂君からはその可能性は否定できないとの軽い報告は受けています。
なら調べてみる価値はあるんじゃないの？しらみつぶしなんだから、残る疑わしい団体がそこ一つならやるしかないでしょ。
ま、調べる団体はそこだけじゃないんですがね。鬼ヶ淵と同じ程度のレベルで疑わしい団体になると、もう相当の数になりますよ。人手も時間も残業代も全然足りません。
赤坂君からさ、もうちょっと詳しく聞いてみてよ。俺はちょっと要注意に感じるけどな、その死守同盟。
彼、村人とうまく接触できたって連絡してきました。現地の警察とも連携できてるみたいですね。
赤坂君との連絡密にしてください。それで彼からの情報が引っかかるようであれば増援を送ることもありということで。
わかりました。すいません、片岡市長。局長からお電話です。こっちに回しますか？
ああ、いい、そっち行きます。もしもし。
Interesting. Alright. What's in the box? Hey guys, what's in the box? I'm guessing from this thumbnail it's probably something fun. Probably something good. Do you believe that there are choices in life? There are many people who lament the following. If there only existed points in life where there were clear choices to make, we would be able to scrutinize these carefully and make decisions that would lead us to a better future. Every time I hear people lament as such, I cast it off as a rather trivial worry. Even if you were given a clear choice, it wouldn't be meaningful at all, and there wouldn't be any such path to a better future. Is this hard to understand? Then let's pretend that in front of you there are two strange boxes. In other words, you have two clear choices. Do you open the red box or the blue box? Do you go to the Matrix or not? A lot of things would be uncertain even with this choice, wouldn't they? If you don't have the option of opening neither, then your choice boils down to the natural impulses of opening the box that holds the better result for you. Then, after examining the shape and features of each and pondering a great many things, you have to pick either the red or the blue. If this was you, which box would you open, red or blue? If you were going to go by their traditional meanings, then red would be a dangerous, threatening color. However, that doesn't automatically mean it would be calm and relaxing inside the blue box either. In fact, it might even be that the colors are a trap to make you wary of the red box so that you would open the blue. A trap. Could it be the contents of the box aren't a reward, but rather a penalty? See, now you're at a loss. You're so conflicted over the choice between red and blue that you've started wishing that there was an option to open neither of them and just leave. But there isn't. You have to open either the red box or the blue box. Oh, I forgot to say this, but if you choose one box, the other will disappear. So you'll never know the contents of the box you don't open. I'll just put that rule at the end there for you. Now, why don't you choose the red box or the blue box? It's alright, you won't lose anything by picking either one. Come on now. Alright. Chat, it is your time to shine. red box or blue box? Blue, blue, red, red. Next vote decides it. Only got 4 people paying attention, probably. Cool, look at that. Somebody voted blue. Oh, we voted blue. Because I voted blue. Because I knew that there wasn't going to be a 5th person answer. Have you thought about it? And in the end, you chose this color, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared. So you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? That's the rule. Now open the box you chose. Inside the box was a stick of chewing gum. We did it. We got gum, everybody. We have a communal piece of chewing gum that we can all use together. I will be more than happy to share it with everybody here, especially in the middle of a pandemic. It'll be great. We'll just have this nice communal wad of gum that we can all use and put back at our leisure. There's nothing gross about it at all. I know you're a little disappointed. Well, that's only natural. No matter how you look at it, it looks like you drew the dud. I don't know. I don't think it's a dud. Exactly. Think of it as a big old sloppy communal indirect kiss. It's really gross. The correct box might have had a bar of chocolate in it for all you know. No, in fact, something incredible like a pair of tickets to Hawaii might have been in there. But even if you wanted to verify that, the other box has already disappeared. There's no way you can check now. But if you think about it from an optimistic point of view, just maybe, the other box was empty and this box was the winner. And being satisfied, or perhaps not, with such a cheap prize, you pop it into your mouth and start chewing it happily. So what did you think in the end? If you were given a second chance, would you try to open the other box? But unfortunately, the chance to choose between the red box or the blue box has come and gone, never to be seen again. Oh, you're lagging? Well, I have it on low latency mode, but given that you are on the other side of the world, that might be a thing. But yeah, like I have all my streams set to be in low latency. The chance to change your selection will never come. Don't your parents often say every choice you make in life only happens once, so choose carefully? See? Choices aren't that great after all. Aren't you a little disillusioned now? This tip was very mean. This tip has me feeling some sort of way. The glint in the demon's eye. We do have a reload and save option. I did not use them, however.
6時からになりまして、告別式があさってのお昼、12時から13時までになりまして、
The wake? Wake?
会場は沖宮セレモニーホールになります。
Who died?
すっか。池澤助役のお孫さんの葬式じゃ。
Okay.
何にも挨拶なしってわけにもいかんね。
We'll do it.
MION.
We'll see if it changes.
代わりに出てな。
I'll do it. Because I like you.
うん、了解。喪服で行く？香典はいくらくらい？
学校の服でえんね。前のボタンちゃんと留めてくんねよ。香典は5万。10万包んだりな。
We didn't fail. It's not the same person. They're talking about somebody else. The deputy mayor. This is not Inugai.
世話になったかな。
MION quietly whistled in awe at the exorbitant amount of money in her grandmother's offering.
池澤さんはな、沖宮の事務所長だった頃からしっかりした人だったんで、役人は挨拶って言っても絶対に玄関までしか来ん。でもな、池澤さんはわしがお茶を勧めるといっつも上がってくれて ちゃんと話を聞いてくれた。人の話を最後まで聞く。本当に鏡みたいな人だったね。
The two guests made a show of nodding, making it clear they were paying attention as Odio reminisced. The sight of them trying not to get on Odio's bad side was humorous enough to elicit laughter from Mion occasionally.
で、池澤助役のお孫さんはいくつで亡くなったんね。
11歳だそうで。
Odio closed her eyes and shook her head lightly, lamenting the loss of such a young life.
確か孫は一人だ言うてんな。かわいそうにな。親より先に死ぬほどの親不孝はあるめな。
私やシオンが死んだら同じように悲しんでくれる？
アホ抜かすんでね。演技でもねすったなんとシャラーあったく。
Having had the reaction she expected, Mion cackled. Two guests, unsure if they were supposed to laugh along, instead forced awkward smiles.
それでは本日は失礼いたします。では明日の夕方5時にお迎えに参りますんで、よろしくお願いいたします。ではごめんくださいませ。
After bowing their heads repeatedly, the guests left by the front door. Mion saw them off, waving a little hand goodbye.
帰ったよ。お役人もバッチャのご機嫌伺いに大変だね。不法なんか電話でいいと思うのにね。
Well, it was true that Odio Sonozaki was a central person to both her relatives and the residents of Hinamizawa village as a whole. As a voting bloc, they numbered in the several thousands. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayor would try to pander to her. Unlike Mion, however, Odio was looking up longingly at the sky from the veranda.
どうしたの？猛録した？
誰のお孫さんであろうと気の毒だのう思ったんよ。
Saying that, she let out a deep sigh. Mion was let down, as normally her grandmother would have scolded her for her attitude.
ミオ、これ例の大臣の孫。さらわれてからどのくらいになる？
4日かな。
Odio let out another deep
旧
sigh.
敵の孫とはいえ気の毒だな。
そう。
十分気はせいたんろ。そろそろ終わりにしちゃれな。
The playful expression drained from Mion's face, leaving behind a stern one. And then, as if to ascertain Odio's will, looked into her eyes. Odio, expressing her intention with only those eyes, looked back into
お
Mion's.
茶が欲しんで頼んでな。さっきのチョコレートも食べといね。
Mion gave a small nod and then turned around.
シミコさん、いますか？抹茶に紅茶入れてあげてください。
From far away, a voice responded in the affirmative. Mion, after confirming she'd been heard, picked up the phone and began dialing.
あ、もしもし？うん。うちのお父さん、います。
Dinky dinky. Alright. We'll go back. Okay. Hold on. We got it. Alright. We're going to open the red box this time. Are we ready? Alright. Here we go. The text is going crazy because there's a skip button for things that you've already read. Alright, we're going to open the red box this time. We're going to totally cheat. Here we go. What did we get in the red box? You chose this color. As soon as it chose, the other box disappeared. Alright. What did we get? Inside the box there was a piece of caramel. I think that kind of wins. But that you cannot have a communal piece of caramel. That's not gonna work. Everybody's not gonna be able to eat on that for a couple of days or something. Yeah, I think we might, like, for the benefit of the chat, we're probably got to stick to the gum because, I mean, that's, you know, it's not gonna go away immediately. As much as I like caramel a lot more, I can't just have a big old communal wad of caramel and share it with all my friends. Yeah, I think we lost if we would have went red. I think we made the right choice from the beginning. But that is going to wrap us up for tonight. However, tomorrow, we're going to start at around 4 or 5 p.m. And we're probably just going to go and not stop, I think. That's the plan. There may be like a break or something. Like I may take like an hour break or something in the middle and then restart the stream or something. But I think we're just going to go try and do the rest of this tomorrow.